A millionaire returns home early, without telling anyone, after years immersed in work to escape the pain of losing his wife. Upon entering the mansion, he is struck by the silence where there used to be only screams and chaos. When he opens the dining room door, he finds his 4 daughters praying peacefully beside a new nanny he has never seen before. Faced with that scene of love and serenity, he breaks down in tears, realizing that light has finally returned to the home he thought was lost. William Sterling contemplated the panoramic view of the Hamptons from his office on the top floor of the imposing corporate building. The Atlantic Ocean stretched to the horizon, and the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange. It was a sight that should have brought peace, but his brown eyes, marked by deep, dark circles, only reflected exhaustion and melancholy. The phone rang for the 5th time that afternoon. William took a deep breath before answering. "Mr. Sterling? It's the Happy Homes Agency again." William closed his eyes. He knew exactly what was coming next. "I apologize, but our employee will not be able to continue. She has decided the job is incompatible with her skills." "Incompatible with her skills," William repeated with a humorless smile. A polite way of saying she ran off in the middle of the night just like the last one. The silence on the other end of the line was answer enough. "Fine. Send the severance payment to my accounting office." After hanging up, William ran a hand through his prematurely graying hair. At 42, the construction industry magnate had already achieved more than most would dream of in a lifetime. He owned a real estate empire that spanned 3 states, possessed a stunning beachfront mansion in the Hamptons, luxury cars and robust bank accounts. Yet the one thing that truly mattered, a happy family, seemed to slip through his fingers like fine sand. William opened his desk drawer and took out a silver picture frame. The radiant smile of Eleanor, his wife, frozen in that photograph, seemed to belong to another life. Her blonde hair blowing in the wind, her bright blue eyes, she had been the sun of his existence. And now, 3 years after she passed away during the complicated birth of their quadruplets, the darkness seemed permanent. 12 nannies in 3 years, he muttered to himself, gently putting the photograph away. "How would you handle this, Ellie?" His secretary, Sarah, knocked lightly on the ajar door. "Sorry to interrupt, William. The meeting with the Korean investors has been moved up to tomorrow. We need to confirm your presence in Washington, D.C. "Confirm it. I'll take the first flight out. And the girls. I just got the call from the agency informing me that—" "I know. Another one quit. Call my sister, see if she can stay with them until I get back." Sarah hesitated, biting her lower lip. "Your sister is in Canada this week, remember? The pediatrics conference." William rubbed his temples, feeling the onset of a migraine. "Then call Mrs. Gable. She can at least keep an eye on the girls while we find someone else." "The housekeeper is already overwhelmed with the mansion, William. Perhaps it's time to consider a more permanent solution. A boarding school, maybe?" The look William shot his secretary was cold enough to end that suggestion instantly. "My daughters will not be sent anywhere. They've already lost their mother. I won't let them lose their father and their home too." Sarah nodded, backing away. "I'll see what I can do. Maybe there's an agency we haven't tried yet." After his secretary left, William returned to contemplating the ocean as night fell over New York City. At some point, he would have to face the truth. His daughters needed more than temporary nannies and an absent father. They needed someone who truly cared. Hours later, the limousine cruised along the coastal highway toward the exclusive residential area. William kept his eyes fixed on documents for a deal in D.C., but his mind wandered home. He imagined how he would find the quadruplets this time. Last week, they had painted the dog's fur with poster paint. The week before, they had filled the pool with soap foam. And what would it be now? The driver stopped before the immense electronic gate. The Sterling mansion, with its contemporary architecture of straight lines and large glass windows, rose imposingly among palm trees and well-tended tropical gardens. From the outside, it looked like anyone's dream. Inside, it was a battlefield. "I'll be up late reviewing some documents. You can go, David. I need to be at the airport at 6 tomorrow morning." William walked across the expansive front lawn, hearing the familiar sound of something breaking inside the house, followed by childish screams. He took a deep breath before using his fingerprint to unlock the main door. The entrance hall, decorated with designer furniture and contemporary American art, was relatively intact. It was the only space that seemed to have escaped the Quadruplets hurricane. Mrs. Gable, the 65-year-old housekeeper who seemed more like a human fortress, appeared at the kitchen entrance with the expression of someone who had just returned from a war. "Mr. Sterling, thank God you're here. The girls are impossible today. They just knocked over the Venetian vase in the hallway." "Where are they now?" "In their room in time out. I told them to stay there until you arrived, but I doubt they obeyed." Before William could respond, a crash from the upper floor confirmed the housekeeper's suspicions. "I'll go up. You can go home, Mrs. Gable. I'm traveling to D.C. early tomorrow." "But Mr. Sterling, what about the girls? Who will—" "I know it's not your job, but could you come in the morning just to make sure they have breakfast and get to school?" The housekeeper's expression softened, revealing the compassion she felt for the situation. "Of course, and after that?" "The agency promised to send someone new tomorrow." William climbed the wide marble staircase, feeling the weight of each step. In the upper hallway, shards of what was once an expensive decorative vase were scattered across the floor. He sighed, walking to the door decorated with 4 colorful nameplates: Beatrice, Brianna, Brooke, and Bella. Upon opening the door, the scene left him momentarily speechless. The shared bedroom, a large space divided into 4 distinct areas, looked as if it had been hit by a tornado. Clothes strewn about, broken toys, torn books, walls, scribbled with colorful markers. In the center of this chaos, 4 identical girls with curly brown hair and blue eyes, Eleanor's eyes, interrupted their heated argument and looked at their father. "Daddy!" Beatrice, the most talkative, ran toward him. "It was Bella who broke the vase, not us." "It wasn't me, Brooke pushed me," defended Bella, the smallest of the 4. "Liar, I was just running and bumped into you by accident," protested Brooke, crossing her arms. Brianna, the quietest and most observant, just stood in her corner, hugging a worn-out teddy bear. William knelt, bringing himself to his daughter's level. Even after 3 years, he was still struck by their resemblance. 4 perfect copies, 4 living reminders of Eleanor. "Girls, it doesn't matter who broke the vase. What matters is that you were running in the hallway, something we've talked about many times." "But we were playing tag," Beatrice justified, "and that vase was ugly anyway." William suppressed a smile. It was the kind of comment Eleanor would have made. She had never liked that vase, a gift from his mother. "Even so, you know the house rules. And look at this room. Like, what did we agree on about keeping your space organized?" The 4 lowered their eyes, momentarily ashamed. But William knew the remorse would be short-lived. Soon they would be plotting some new mischief. "I have to travel to D.C. early tomorrow. I'll be gone until Friday." "Who's going to stay with us?" asked Bella, the most attached to her father. "Mrs. Gable will come in the morning to take you to school, and the agency will send a new nanny." The girls' faces lit up with mischievous smiles, and William felt a pang in his chest. He knew exactly what those smiles meant. Another victim in their path. "I want you to behave this time. This game of scaring away the nannies isn't funny." "They leave because they want to," Brooke replied with the feigned innocence William knew all too well. "We're little angels." After helping them minimally organize the room and supervising them during their bath and dinner, William put the 4 to bed. It was the only moment of the day when he felt a genuine connection with his daughters. As he read a story, he watched their sleepy faces and thought about how Eleanor would have loved to see them like this, peaceful and vulnerable. "Daddy," Brianna called in a sleepy voice, "is Mommy in the stars watching us?" The question caught William off guard. They rarely spoke of Eleanor. It was like a silent agreement they had made, perhaps to protect themselves from the pain. "Yes, Princess. Mommy is always watching over you." "Would she be sad with us?" asked Bella. "For being messy?" William felt his throat tighten. "No, she would understand. Your mother also had a free spirit and loved adventures." "Tell us a story about her," requested Beatrice, snuggling deeper into her pillow. "Well, there was this one time your mother decided She wanted to see the sunrise from the top of the Empire State Building. She woke me up at 4 in the morning, dragged me out of bed. William continued the story until he realized all 4 had fallen asleep. Carefully, he kissed each one on the forehead and left the room. In the silence of his private office, surrounded by entrepreneurship awards and multi-million-dollar contracts, William poured himself a glass of whiskey. His cell phone rang. It was Sarah. "We got one. The Guardian Angels Agency has a professional available to start tomorrow. Her name is Amelia Hayes. Qualifications? Degree in education, specialization in early childhood development, experience with special needs children. She sounds perfect." William took a sip of his drink, skeptical. "They all sound perfect on paper, Sarah. This one is different according to the agency. They described her as someone with a special gift for difficult children." "A special gift," William repeated sarcastically. "I hope she has a special gift for dealing with booby traps, because that's what my daughters will be setting for her." After hanging up, William approached the large window overlooking the backyard. The space, once one of Eleanor's prides with its meticulously planned flower beds, was now partially neglected. The gardener only came once a week to maintain a minimum of order. In a corner, almost hidden by untrimmed bushes, was the small wooden bench where he and Eleanor used to sit on summer nights. There they had dreamed of the future, planned their family. They never imagined she wouldn't be there to see her daughters grow up. William finished his drink, feeling the weight of the loneliness he carried. Tomorrow would be just another day in the chaotic routine his life had become. A new nanny would arrive full of hope, face the chaos squad, as he secretly called his daughters, and probably wouldn't last a week. Little did he know that Amelia Hayes was not like the others, and that her arrival would mark the beginning of a transformation that none of them could have foreseen. On the opposite side of the city, in a modest apartment in Queens, Amelia Hayes was packing a small bag. She placed simple clothes, a few well-worn children's books, and finally, a Bible with a frayed cover. Her fingers caressed the pages marked and annotated over the years. "Lord, guide my steps on this new journey," she whispered, closing the sacred book with reverence. Next to the bag was a folder with information about her new job. 4 7-year-old girls, motherless, an absent father, 12 nannies who had quit. For anyone else, it would be an impossible job. For Amelia, it was exactly where she needed to be. The morning was particularly sunny when Amelia Hayes arrived at the Sterling mansion. The rideshare driver whistled softly as he pulled up to the imposing gate. "Are you sure this is the place, Mum?" Amelia smiled, adjusting the strap of her small, worn suitcase. "Yes, this is it." As she rang the intercom, Amelia felt an inexplicable sense of purpose, as if her whole life had prepared her for this moment. "Sterling residence," a female voice answered. "Good morning. I'm Amelia Hayes, the new nanny." There was a brief silence, followed by an audible sigh. "Ah, yes. Please come in." The gate slid open automatically, revealing a stone path that wound through the front garden. Amelia walked slowly, observing the details of the property. The royal palms lining the entrance, the modern sculptures strategically placed, the central fountain with crystal-clear water. Everything exuded wealth and sophistication, but also a strange coldness, as if the place were more of a showcase than a home. At the main door, a woman with grey hair and a rigid posture awaited her. Her time-worn face held an expression somewhere between tired and skeptical. "I'm Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper. Please come in." Amelia followed the woman through the mansion's interior, trying not to show her surprise at the luxury. The entrance hall, with its marble floor and imposing staircase, looked like it was out of a design magazine. However, as they moved into the more private areas of the house, Amelia noticed signs of disorder: scattered toys, a slightly crooked painting, suspicious stains on the carpet. "Mr. Sterling has already left for D.C. He returns on Friday," Mrs. Gable spoke as they walked. "The girls are having breakfast in the kitchen. I must warn you, they are, peculiar." Amelia smiled calmly. "All children are peculiar in their own way, Mrs. Gable." The housekeeper stopped abruptly, turning to face Amelia. Her eyes scanned the young woman from head to toe, as if assessing her chances of survival. "You're not from around here, are you?" "I'm from the Midwest. I came to New York a few years ago." "And you've worked with difficult children before?" "I worked at the New Horizons project with at-risk children, and I teach Sunday school at my church." Mrs. Gable nodded, seemingly satisfied with the answer, but her gaze still held doubt. "Well, nothing you've experienced before has prepared you for the sterling quadruplets. I sincerely hope you last longer than the last nanny. She only stayed for 2 days. Before Amelia could respond, they reached the spacious kitchen. 4 identical girls with curly brown hair and large blue eyes were seated around the breakfast table. Upon seeing Amelia, they instantly stopped their conversation, 4 pairs of eyes studying her with unnerving intensity. "Girls, this is Amelia Hayes, the new nanny. Please behave." Mrs. Gable's tone left no doubt that she did not expect this request to be heeded. Amelia stepped forward with a genuine smile. "Good morning, girls. It's a pleasure to meet you." For a few seconds, none of the quadruplets responded. Then, the one who seemed most confident stood up and extended her hand with a formality almost comical for a 7-year-old. "I'm Beatrice. You're our new nanny number 13. "They say 13 is an unlucky number," added another with a mischievous grin. "That's Brooke," Beatrice introduced. "The one in the pink shirt is Brianna, and the one with pigtails is Bella." Amelia shook the small extended hand and then waved at the others. "I'm very happy to meet you, and I don't believe in luck or bad luck, only in purpose." The girls exchanged quick glances, as if sharing a secret. Amelia immediately noticed the silent communication between them, something common among multiples, and knew they were already planning something. "Mrs. Gable has already prepared your room," Beatrice continued, suddenly helpful. "Do you want us to show you around the house?" Mrs. Gable frowned, suspicious of the sudden cordiality. "The girls need to leave for school in 20 minutes. You can see the house later, Amelia." "But we can at least show her her room," Brooke insisted with innocent eyes. "It's polite, isn't it?" The housekeeper sighed, checking her watch. "All right, but be quick, and no mischief, I'm warning you." The quadruplets jumped from their chairs with suspicious excitement. Amelia picked up her suitcase and followed the quartet down the hall. She watched, fascinated, as they moved in perfect sync, despite their clearly distinct personalities. Beatrice led, talkative and confident. Brooke followed closely, vibrant and impulsive. Brianna, more reserved, walked slightly apart, observing everything. And Bella, the smallest, seemed constantly distracted, looking all around. "You'll be staying in the room next to ours," Beatrice explained as they climbed the staircase. "It's the only one with a blue door." "Nanny number 7 asked to change rooms because she said she heard strange noises at night," Brooke commented with a sly smile. "And number 10 found a spider on her pillow and never came back," added Bella, laughing. Amelia maintained her calm smile. "I like rooms with character, and spiders are fascinating creatures, you know. They weave incredible webs without anyone teaching them." The girls seemed momentarily taken aback by her reaction. They had expected fear, not curiosity. When they reached the room with the blue door, Beatrice opened it with an exaggerated flourish. "Voila! Your new home." The room was spacious and elegantly decorated, with a queen-size bed, a large wardrobe, a desk, and a comfortable armchair near the window that offered a view of the backyard. It was, without a doubt, more luxurious than any place Amelia had ever slept. "It's beautiful. Thank you so much for showing me. You can leave your things. We'll wait in the hallway to show you where the bathroom is," Brooke offered with exaggerated solicitude. The 4 quickly exited, closing the door. Amelia heard their whispers and giggles from outside, but instead of being suspicious, she smiled to herself. She placed her suitcase on the bed and opened it to take out her Bible. She was holding it against her chest when she noticed something strange. A thin, almost invisible string stretched between the door and the wardrobe, positioned at the perfect height for someone to trip. Calmly, Amelia knelt and disarmed the simple trap, coiling the string. Then she noticed a small bucket strategically placed on top of the slightly ajar door. She reached for it carefully, discovering it was full of blue glitter. "Creative," she murmured, placing the bucket on the desk. "Very creative." After checking for any more surprises, Amelia opened the door. The four girls were waiting in the hallway, their anxious expressions quickly turning to disappointment when they saw her emerge completely dry and without a speck of glitter. "I'm ready to see the bathroom," Amelia announced, as if nothing had happened. "How did you—" Brooke began, but was cut off by a nudge from Beatrice. "This way," the leader of the Quadruplets said, barely hiding her frustration. After a quick tour of the facilities, Mrs. Gable appeared in the hallway. "Time for school, girls. The driver is already waiting." "But we haven't even shown Amelia the house properly," Bella protested. "You'll have time later. Now, get your backpacks." Reluctantly, the Quadruplets obeyed. Before going downstairs, Beatrice turned to Amelia with an enigmatic smile. "See you later, Nanny number 13. Get ready for a fun afternoon." Mrs. Gable waited for the girls to go down before approaching Amelia. "They set something up for you, didn't they?" "A little trick at the door, nothing major." The housekeeper shook her head, impressed. "You found it. That's unusual. The first trap usually works." "I grew up with 3 younger brothers, Mrs. Gable. I'm well versed in the childhood repertoire of pranks." The old woman sighed, and for a moment her stern face softened. "This house used to be so joyful, you know. Before Mrs. Eleanor, well, passed. She lit up every room. The girls were babies, of course, but Mr. Sterling was different." He smiled. "He played, he lived. Now he just exists." "Loss changes people," Amelia replied softly. "But nothing is lost forever. Sometimes we just need help finding what we believe we've lost." Mrs. Gable studied the young woman's face with renewed interest. "The agency said you have a special gift with children. Maybe that's what this house needs, a special gift." "I don't have special gifts, just patience and the certainty that every child, behind difficult behaviors, is just asking for help in their own way." The housekeeper nodded slowly. "Well, if you want to last longer than the others, you'll need more than patience, you'll need a strategy." She consulted her wristwatch. "I have to go now. The girls get back at 1 p.m. Lunch will be served at 1:30. If you have any problems, my number is on the list next to the kitchen phone." After the housekeeper and the girls left, Amelia found herself alone in the immense mansion. She decided to use the time to familiarize herself with the space. As she walked through the rooms, she noticed the signs of a once happy home. Photographs of joyful moments in expensive frames, toys that showed the love and care of a father who wanted the best for his daughters, spaces that had clearly been planned for a united family. However, she also sensed the sadness embedded in the walls, empty spaces where photos had been removed, rooms that seemed untouched, like small mausoleums of painful memories, and above all the evident absence of a mother figure, a void that no luxury could fill. In the living room, Amelia stopped before a large family portrait. A younger, smiling William was embracing a beautiful woman with blonde hair and intense blue eyes, the same eyes the Quadruplets had inherited. Eleanor Sterling seemed to radiate life, even in the static photograph. "They need you so much," Amelia whispered to the portrait, "but until they can move forward, I'll be here to help." Continuing her exploration, Amelia reached the kitchen, where the cleaning staff was at work. The cook, a friendly woman named Martha, was preparing lunch while chatting animatedly with her assistants. "Oh, you must be the new girl," Martha said upon seeing her. "Welcome, dear. Would you like some coffee?" Amelia accepted the offer, sitting at the table while she observed the activity. "So you're the brave one who accepted the job of looking after the little rascals," Martha commented with an affectionate smile. "Don't get me wrong, I love those girls, but they have a special talent for chaos." "They seem energetic," Amelia replied diplomatically. Martha laughed as she served the coffee. "Energetic is a very nice euphemism, my dear. They're a Category 5 hurricane, but deep down they're just sad children trying to get attention." Amelia nodded, taking a sip of the strong coffee. "Losing their mother so young, it's a pain many adults couldn't process." "Exactly. And Mr. Sterling, poor man, tries to compensate with gifts and expensive things, but what they really want is his presence. He drowns himself in work so he doesn't have to face his grief, while the little ones scream for attention the only way they know how." The conversation was interrupted by Amelia's cell phone ringing. It was the agency, checking if everything was all right. After the brief call, Amelia decided to prepare for the girls' arrival. She was sure the afternoon would be, as Beatrice had promised, fun. At 1 p.m. sharp, the sound of the school van parking announced the return of the quadruplets. Amelia waited at the entrance with a calm smile. The four descended from the vehicle like a small troop, carrying colourful backpacks and chatting excitedly. "Look, 13 is still here," Brooke commented, sounding genuinely surprised. "I thought she would have left after finding the rubber spider in her drawer," Bella whispered, not as discreetly as she imagined. Amelia widened her smile. "Good afternoon, girls. How was school?" "Normal," replied Beatrice, clearly the group's spokesperson. "Did you find our surprise?" "If you're talking about the rubber spider, I did. I put it on the shelf in my room. I like it." The four exchanged bewildered looks. Brianna, who rarely spoke, finally chimed in with a soft voice. "You weren't scared?" "Of a rubber spider?" "No. Real spiders don't scare me either. On my grandparents' farm in the Midwest, I learned to respect all creatures." "You lived on a farm?" Bella asked, suddenly interested. "With real animals. Yes, cows, chickens, horses, goats, and lots of dogs." A genuine spark of curiosity appeared in the eyes of all four. "We can talk about that after lunch," Amelia continued. "Now, how about you change out of your uniforms? Martha has prepared a delicious meal." To her surprise, the girls obeyed without protest. As they went up the stairs, Amelia noticed the quick glances they exchanged. A new plan was being hatched, and she was curious to find out what it would be. Lunch passed relatively peacefully. The quadruplets cast conspiratorial looks at each other, but maintained a polite conversation. Amelia realized they were sizing her up, trying to find weaknesses, and this amused her internally. She had faced situations far more challenging than 4 7-year-old girls, no matter how clever they were. "What are we doing after lunch?" Beatrice asked, seemingly innocent. "I thought I'd get to know your routine better. What do you usually do at this time?" "We have free time until 4, then we do homework," informed Brianna, the most responsible one. "How about we do something different today? You could show me the house and the garden, tell me stories about your favorite places." "We can show you the secret lab where we do experiments," exclaimed Bella enthusiastically. "Shh!" Beatrice shot her sister a disapproving look. That was supposed to be a surprise. Amelia pretended not to notice the obvious plan in motion. "I'd love to see this lab. I've always liked science." After lunch and a brief rest, the quadruplets practically dragged Amelia to the mansion's recreation area. The so-called lab was actually a space in the service area, behind the laundry room, which they had improvised with buckets, empty jars, and utensils borrowed from the kitchen. "This is where we make our mixtures," Brooke explained proudly, showing jars labeled with names like Disaster Potion and Sticky Slime. "Very impressive," Amelia commented sincerely. Their creativity was remarkable. "Want to see how it works?" Beatrice asked with a mischievous glint in her eye. Of course, that would be educational. The girls quickly began to gather ingredients: flour, food coloring, detergent, baking, soda. Amelia watched attentively, sensing the plan forming. They were preparing a mixture that would surely result in a big, sticky mess. "And now we add the secret ingredient," Beatrice announced dramatically, holding a bottle of vinegar. "Interesting," Amelia commented calmly. "Do you know what happens when we mix vinegar with baking soda?" "An explosion!" exclaimed Bella, jumping with excitement. "Actually, it's a fascinating chemical reaction. Baking soda is a base and vinegar is an acid. When they meet, they release carbon dioxide, those bubbles that look like a small explosion." The girls seemed momentarily surprised by the scientific explanation. "You know about science?" Brianna asked, intrigued. "A little. I really enjoy learning new things." Amelia smiled, and to the quadruplets' astonishment, took the bottle of vinegar. "Shall we see this reaction together? But first, how about we put the mixture in something that can contain the bubbles better, like this bigger jar?" Disconcerted by the nanny's enthusiastic participation in their trap, the girls agreed. Instead of the sticky disaster they had planned, they ended up creating a controlled and genuinely interesting experiment. "Wow, look at all the bubbles," Bella exclaimed, delighted. Can we color the foam? Asked Brooke, already reaching for the red food coloring. Of course, and then we can try with different colors and see what happens when we mix them. For nearly an hour, Amelia and the quadruplets conducted various experiments, each more colorful than the last. What had begun as an attempt at sabotage turned into a fun, impromptu science lesson. When they finally finished, the hands of all five were stained with various colors, but the area was surprisingly clean. Amelia had subtly taught the girls to organize each step before moving on to the next. That was fun, Beatrice admitted, sounding genuinely surprised by the fact. Can we do it again tomorrow? Bella asked hopefully. Of course, and we can try other experiments too. Do you know how to make homemade slime? 4 faces lit up at the prospect. The rest of the afternoon unfolded in a similar manner. The quadruplets tried 2 more traps, salt instead of sugar for their snack and a bucket of water over the bathroom door. On both occasions, Amelia not only avoided the traps, but turned them into moments of learning and fun. When it was time for homework, the girls were significantly more receptive, though still cautious. Amelia helped them with their school assignments, showing infinite patience with Brooke's concentration difficulties and discreetly encouraging the shy Brianna's participation. At night, as she prepared them for bed, Amelia noticed a subtle change in the quadruplets' behavior. They were still planning mischief, but there was a new element in their interactions, genuine curiosity about the new nanny, who seemed immune to their usual tactics. "Are you going to tell Dad about our games?" Beatrice asked while brushing her teeth. "What do you think? Should I tell him?" The girl thought for a moment. Maybe not. He'd be upset. "I think. What matters isn't the games themselves, but the intention behind them. Why do you do this to the nannies?" The question caught Beatrice off guard. She rinsed her mouth before answering. "Because they don't really like us. They just pretend." Amelia nodded understandingly. "And how do you know they're just pretending?" "You can see it in their eyes. When we make a mess, they get really angry. If they liked us, they wouldn't." The sincerity of the answer touched Amelia deeply. Behind the pranks, there was a childish yet profoundly logical strategy to test the limits of love and acceptance. You know, sometimes people can get frustrated or even angry and still love very much. Complicated feelings can exist at the same time. Beatrice seemed to consider the idea as the others finished their nightly hygiene. When they were all in their beds, Bella made an unexpected request. "Tell us a story. Nanny number 8 used to tell cool stories." "Of course. What kind of story would you like to hear?" "A princess one," Brianna suggested shyly. "No, an adventure one," Brooke countered. "How about a story with adventurous princesses?" Amelia proposed. "Do you know the story of the 4 guardian princesses?" 4 heads shook negatively, their eyes suddenly and genuinely interested. Once upon a time, there were 4 princesses, twin sisters, each with a special gift. Amelia began an improvised story about 4 magical sisters who protected their kingdom. Woven into the narrative, she subtly included messages about cooperation, accepting pain, and the value of family. When she finished, the girls were sleepy but visibly enchanted. "Will you tell more tomorrow?" Bella asked, yawning. "I promise, now it's time to sleep." One by one, Amelia tucked the girls in and wished them good night. As she was about to leave the room, Brianna's voice, usually so quiet, stopped her. "Amelia?" "Yes, dear. Are you going to leave like the others?" The question, so simple and direct, carried the weight of so many previous departures, of so many adults who couldn't handle 4 grieving children. "I'm not planning on going anywhere," Amelia replied softly. "I'll be here when you wake up tomorrow. I promise." Turning off the main light, leaving only the night light on, Amelia partially closed the door. In the hallway, she allowed herself a moment to reflect on the challenging day. The quadruplets were exactly as the agency had described: destructive, difficult, defiant. But she also saw what others might not have noticed. They were scared children, testing limits not out of malice, but out of fear of more abandonment. In her room, Amelia opened her worn Bible, finding comfort in words underlined years ago. Her heart told her she was exactly where she was supposed to be, and that gave her a sense of purpose that not even the real spider, not a rubber one that the girls had placed on her pillow, could shake. With a smile, Amelia gently picked up the spider and carried it to the window, releasing it into the garden. "Good night, little creature, and good night, girls who are peeking through the crack in the door. Tomorrow is a new day." From the hallway, she heard the sound of quickly stifled giggles and hurried footsteps returning to the children's room. The next morning, Amelia woke before dawn, a habit she'd kept since her childhood on her grandparents' farm. The silence of the mansion was almost palpable, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous day. She used this quiet moment for her morning devotional, reading a few passages from her worn Bible and praying silently. "Guide my steps today, Lord. Help me be a light for these children." When she finished, the first rays of sun were beginning to light up the room. Amelia decided to prepare a surprise for the girls. She headed to the kitchen, where she found Martha already starting her work. "Good morning, dear. Up early today, aren't you?" "I always wake up early. May I use the kitchen to prepare something special for the girls' breakfast?" Martha gave a warm smile. "Of course you can. What do you have in mind?" "Pancakes shaped like animals. It's what my mother used to make when I was sad." The cook nodded in approval. "The little ones will love that. Let me help you." Together, they prepared a light batter and separated natural food colorings to create colorful pancakes. Amelia revealed a surprising talent for shaping the batter on the griddle, creating recognizable animal shapes. When she was done, there was an edible zoo of elephants, lions, giraffes, and turtles, all colored and decorated with fresh fruit. "Where did you learn to do that?" Martha asked, impressed. "My mother taught me, and then I used to make them for my youngest brother, who was a very picky eater." At 7 o'clock, Amelia went up to wake the Quadruplets. Opening the bedroom door, she found a scene that made her smile. The four were sleeping together in the same bed, Brianna's, cuddled up like puppies. In that moment of vulnerability, they looked exactly like what they were, small children seeking comfort in one another. "Good morning, princesses," Amelia called softly. "Time to wake up." Beatrice was the first to open her eyes, blinking in confusion for a moment before adopting her usual alert expression. "You're still here," she stated, as if genuinely surprised. "I promised I would be, didn't I?" One by one, the other girls woke up, looking at Amelia with varied expressions of suspicion and curiosity. "I've prepared a surprise for breakfast, but first, we need to get ready for school." To her amazement, the Quadruplets obeyed without resistance, perhaps motivated by curiosity about the mentioned surprise. In record time, they were ready and heading down to the kitchen, where the colorful feast awaited them. "Wow!" exclaimed Bella, her eyes wide. "They're animal pancakes." "I've never seen pancakes like this," admitted Brianna, a rare smile forming on her face. "You can choose whichever animals you want," Amelia offered. "There's honey, chocolate syrup, and fruit to go with them." The girls attacked breakfast with genuine childish enthusiasm. Amelia watched, satisfied, as they chatted excitedly about which animal was the prettiest and which they would eat first. "Did you make all this yourself?" Brooke asked with a mouthful of purple pancake. "Martha helped me, and I thought we could make them together someday. It's fun to create the shapes." "Can we make dinosaurs?" Beatrice asked. Of course, dinosaurs are a great idea. Breakfast passed in a light, almost normal atmosphere. When the driver arrived to take them to school, the girls said goodbye with less resistance than the previous day. "Are we going to continue our princess story tonight?" Bella asked at the door. "Absolutely, and they'll have a new adventure." After the Quadruplets left, Amelia dedicated herself to getting to know the house and its routine better. She spoke at length with Mrs. Gable about the family's habits, the girls' specific needs, and the structure of the property. "They behaved well at breakfast," the housekeeper commented, surprised. "It's usually a war." "Children respond well to novelty and genuine attention," Amelia replied. "The challenge is to maintain that connection when the novelty wears off." The morning passed quietly. Amelia organized the girls' room, carefully observing the personal details that revealed their distinct personalities. Beatrice's shelf full of adventure books, Brianna's meticulous drawings, Brooke's collection of rocks and shells, Bella's carefully aligned stuffed animals. In a drawer, she found photographs of their mother, some hidden like precious treasures. In another, she discovered letters written in childish handwriting addressed to Mommy in heaven. Amelia's heart ached. She put everything back exactly as she had found it, respecting that sanctuary of memories. Later, she explored other areas of the house, always talking to the staff, seeking to understand the dynamics of that fractured home. Everyone spoke fondly of the girls, despite their difficult behavior, and with respect for William, though they noted his emotional distance since his wife's passing. In the middle of the afternoon, the quadruplets returned from school with the typical energy of children who had spent hours contained in a classroom. To Amelia's surprise, there were no immediate signs of new traps. Instead, they came loaded with ideas for the promised experiments. "We brought materials from science class," Beatrice announced, showing a bag, full of plastic test tubes, disposable gloves, and children's safety goggles. "The teacher let us bring them after we told her about our lab," Brooke explained, "and I borrowed the experiment book from the library," added Brianna, showing a colorful science manual for children. Amelia smiled, genuinely moved by their enthusiasm. "That's wonderful, girls. How about we do our homework first, and then have a whole afternoon of experiments?" To her astonishment, there were no protests. The quadruplets quickly organized themselves at the study table, determined to finish their assignments quickly. Amelia helped them patiently, realizing that despite their behavioral difficulties, they were intelligent and curious girls. The afternoon turned into a fun session of scientific experiments. They made colored slime, baking soda volcanoes, salt crystals, and even a small garden in glass jars. The girls were so engrossed they barely noticed the hours passing. During a break, as she watched the four concentrating on decorating their crystallization jars, Amelia realized something important. For a few hours, they weren't trying to test her limits or scare her away. They were just being children, experiencing the joy of discovery. Martha, who occasionally peeked at the activity, discreetly pulled Amelia aside. "In 3 years, I've never seen them like this. So, normal. What did you do?" "Nothing special. I just gave them space to be who they are, without expectations." The cook shook her head, impressed. "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. It's a miracle." Dinner was peaceful, with the quadruplets excitedly recounting every experiment they had conducted. Afterward, Amelia supervised their bath, an operation that, according to Mrs. Gable, usually resulted in a flooded bathroom, and managed to conduct the process with surprising efficiency. At bedtime, as promised, she continued the story of the guardian princesses. This time, however, she noticed something different. The girls were beginning to identify with the characters, each choosing her favorite. "I'm like the fire princess," declared Brooke, "brave and fast." "And I'm the earth princess," said Beatrice, "the leader who takes care of everyone." "I like the water princess," Brianna murmured. "She's quiet but strong." "And I'm the air princess," Bella completed, "who flies and dreams." Amelia smiled, realizing how the story was becoming a tool for them to express their own identities. When she finished the night's chapter, they were all sleepy but satisfied. "More tomorrow?" Bella asked, already yawning. "Of course. The princesses still have many adventures ahead." After turning off the lights, Amelia did her nightly rounds of the house, checking that everything was in order. In the living room, she stopped again before the portrait of Eleanor Sterling. There was something in that woman's smile that conveyed peace and joy, qualities that seemed to have abandoned the house after her departure. "Your daughters are incredible," she whispered to the portrait, "strong, just as you must have been." That night, Amelia slept peacefully. For the first time since her arrival, there were no attempts to play pranks during the night. The quadruplets, exhausted from the day's activities, had fallen asleep quickly. However, the peace was about to be interrupted. That same night, miles away in a luxury hotel in Washington, D.C., William Sterling watched the illuminated city from his suite window. In his hands, he held a glass of whiskey and his cell phone, which had just brought unpleasant news. The negotiation he had traveled for, A multi-million-dollar contract for the construction of a commercial complex had unexpectedly fallen through. "What do you mean they pulled out?" he asked into the phone, his voice tense. "Yesterday, everything was practically settled." "They received a better offer from Thompson Construction," Sarah explained from the other end of the line. "Apparently, they cut 15% off the original budget." "Impossible. To cut that much, they'd have to use lower quality materials or pay bribes to avoid certain fees." "Probably both," the secretary replied pragmatically. "Do you want me to schedule a new meeting to try to reverse it?" William drank the last of his whiskey, feeling the liquid burn his throat. "No. If that's how they do business, I'm not interested. Prepare the documents for our formal withdrawal from the bidding. Explicitly state our concerns about the integrity of the process. It'll cause a stir. The Thompsons have political connections. I don't care. I don't compromise on quality or my principles." After hanging up, William poured himself another glass, contemplating the lights of the federal capital. This trip had been a waste of time he could have spent with his daughters. Guilt, a constant companion for the past 3 years, tightened his chest. "They need you, and you're here, chasing contracts," he muttered to himself. A sudden wave of longing hit him. He picked up the phone and called home, but no one answered. They were probably all asleep. He checked the time, almost 11 at night. He made an impulsive decision. "David, it's William. I need you to prep the jet. We're flying back to New York tonight." "Sir, it's late. We can leave early tomorrow and—" "No, David. I want to go back now. Make it happen." An hour later, the Sterling Construction private jet took off from the D.C. airport. William leaned back in the leather seat, exhausted but determined to get home as soon as possible. He felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest, as if something were calling him back. "Any other instructions?" "Sir?" asked David, who doubled as his driver and personal assistant. "Don't tell anyone at home. I want to surprise the girls." The next morning, at the Sterling mansion, Amelia woke to the sound of laughter coming from the hallway. She checked the clock. 6:15. It was still early for the Quadruplets to be up. Intrigued, she got up and opened her bedroom door. The four, still in their pajamas, were kneeling in front of her room, surrounded by craft supplies. They were concentrating on what looked like a colorful sign. "Good morning, girls, you're up early today." The Quadruplets started, quickly trying to hide their project. "It's a surprise," exclaimed Bella. "You can't see yet." "Bella," Beatrice chided, "it was supposed to be a secret." "Sorry," the smallest murmured, shrugging. Amelia smiled, playing along. "All right, I won't look. I'll go downstairs and prepare breakfast while you finish your secret thing." "No, wait." Brooke stood up. "We're done. Look." With pride, the four held up their creation, a colorful poster board decorated with glitter, stickers, and handmade drawings. On it, written in uneven letters, were the words, "Aunt Amelia's room, our family." "It's to put on your door," Brianna explained shyly, "like the ones we have on ours." "So you can stay forever," Bella added. Amelia felt her eyes well up with tears. It was a simple, even childish gesture, but it was laden with meaning. These girls, who had driven away 12 nannies before her, were offering her a permanent place in their lives. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Can I give you a hug?" The Quadruplets hesitated for a moment. Physical displays of affection didn't seem common in their routine. But then they threw themselves into her arms. For several seconds, Amelia held the four, girls in a group hug, feeling the warmth and trust they were beginning to place in her. "Let's put it on the door," Beatrice suggested, ever practical. "We brought tape." Together, they fixed the colorful sign to the blue door. Then, at Amelia's suggestion, they took a selfie next to their creation, the first photo of the 5 of them together. "Are we officially a family now?" Bella asked, hopefully. The question caught Amelia by surprise. How could she answer without creating unrealistic expectations? "Families come in many forms, Bella. What matters is the love and care we have for each other. And yes, as long as I'm here, we're a family in our own special way." The girls seemed satisfied with the answer. Excited by the success of their surprise, they quickly agreed to get ready for breakfast. The atmosphere in the house was one of genuine joy, something rare in recent years, as Martha would later comment. During the morning, they followed the routine established the day before. A creative breakfast, this time sandwiches shaped like faces, getting ready for school, and goodbyes that were significantly more affectionate than in previous days. "Come back soon, Aunt Amelia," Bella shouted, from the school van window, waving her hand frantically. The other three mimicked the gesture, though Brianna did so more reservedly. "I'll be waiting," Amelia promised, waving back. The morning passed peacefully. Amelia took the opportunity to delve deeper into organizing the girls' room, a project she had started the day before. She didn't want to change their space too much, just bring some functional order. As she worked, she found more evidence of the silent grief that permeated the house: drawings of their mother stored in folders, handmade get-well cards, childish lists of things to do when Mommy comes back. At noon, she was finishing organizing a bookshelf when she heard the sound of a car parking at the entrance. She looked out the window, surprised to see a black limousine. It wasn't time for the girls to be back, and she wasn't expecting visitors. She went downstairs to check, finding Mrs. Gable in the entrance hall, equally confused. Who could that be? Mr. Sterling isn't back until Friday. Before they could speculate further, the front door opened. William Sterling entered, looking tired from having traveled all night. For a moment he paused at the entrance, clearly not expecting to find a stranger in his house. "Good morning, who are you?" he asked directly, his tone not hostile but certainly reserved. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. I'm Amelia Hayes, the girl's new nanny." "Ah, yes." He seemed to remember. "The agency mentioned you. I didn't expect to come back and still find you here." The comment could have sounded offensive, but his tone was more of genuine surprise than criticism. "Mr. Sterling," Mrs. Gable approached, "we weren't expecting you until Friday." There was a change of plans. He handed his briefcase and coat to the housekeeper. The deal fell through. "How are the girls?" "They're fine, at school now," Mrs. Gable replied. "They'll be back at 1 p.m. "Good. I'm going to take a shower and rest a bit. I want to surprise them." William gave Amelia one last appraising look before heading up the stairs. He was not a man of many words, especially with new employees who, in his experience, rarely lasted more than a few days. Amelia took a deep breath. The brief encounter had been tense, but understandable. After all, she was just one more in a long line of temporary nannies from his perspective. "Don't take it personally," Mrs. Gable advised when they were alone. "He's been like this since Mrs. Eleanor passed. Before, he was the kindest, most sociable man in the world. I understand completely. I'll prepare his room and arrange for a special lunch. Can you greet the girls when they get back? I think it's best not to mention their father is home. Let it be a surprise." Amelia agreed, returning to her tasks while processing the encounter. William Sterling was not as she had imagined. Despite his evident exhaustion, she noticed a dignity in his posture, a depth in his gaze that spoke of someone carrying much more than the weight of a business empire. Around 1 p.m., the Quadruplets returned, as lively as they had been when they left. They were talking about the school play they had been cast in. They were all playing snowflakes, which they found hilarious given the New York heat. "Aunt Amelia, guess what? We're going to be snow," Bella announced, jumping with excitement as she entered. "That's wonderful. You'll be the most beautiful snowflakes in the country." "We have to make our costumes," Beatrice explained. "The teacher asked parents to help." A shadow passed over Amelia's face. She knew this generic parents represented a specific challenge for the Quadruplets. "I'm sure we can create amazing costumes together," she replied enthusiastically. "And maybe we can ask your dad for help too." "He never has time," Brooke replied with a resigned shrug. "But it's okay, we're used to it." "Speaking of your dad," Amelia began, but was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the staircase. The four girls turned simultaneously, their eyes widening as they saw William descending. For an instant, everyone froze. The father, the daughters, Amelia. Then, like a dam breaking, the Quadruplets ran toward him, shouting with joy. "Daddy, you're back early. We missed you. Why didn't you tell us? Did you bring presents?" William knelt, trying to hug all four at once, an impossible task, but touching in its intention. Amelia watched discreetly, noticing the mix of joy and discomfort on the man's face. It was evident he loved his daughters deeply, but also that he didn't quite know how to show it. "Surprise," he said finally. "I decided to come back early to spend more time with you." "Really?" Brianna asked, the natural suspicion in her voice. "You're not going to the office today?" The innocent question clearly hit William, revealing a familiar pattern. Even his surprises often ended with him going to work. "No, princess. Today I'm all yours." The girls exchanged incredulous looks before bursting into a new wave of enthusiasm. They all started talking at once, telling him about school, the science experiments, the play, and, to Amelia's surprise, the coolest aunt in the world. "She makes animal pancakes, Daddy. And she doesn't get mad when we make a mess. And she knows how to tell stories about warrior princesses. And now she's part of the family, look." Bella pulled on her father's sleeve, dragging him to see the sign on Amelia's bedroom door. William, momentarily overwhelmed by his daughter's enthusiasm, cast a curious glance at Amelia, who remained discreetly in the background. There was a silent question in his eyes, a genuine astonishment at the evident connection this stranger had established with his daughters in just 2 days. "Why don't you go put your backpacks away while I talk with Aunt Amelia?" he suggested, testing the nickname with evident awkwardness. The girls reluctantly obeyed, heading up the stairs while continuing to chatter among themselves. When they were alone in the hall, William turned to Amelia. "It seems you've won over my daughters in record time, Miss Hayes." "I didn't do anything special, Mr. Sterling. I just treated them for what they are, wonderful children dealing with very complex feelings." William studied her more closely. Amelia was young. She couldn't be more than 28, but her brown eyes emanated a quiet wisdom that seemed out of place for her age. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, but there was something about her presence that conveyed warmth and security. 12 professional nannies tried and failed. What did you do differently?" Amelia considered the question for a moment. "Perhaps I didn't try to fix them. Children don't need to be fixed, Mr. Sterling. They need to be understood." The direct answer seemed to surprise William. He opened his mouth to reply, but was interrupted by Bella, who shot down the stairs. "Daddy, Daddy, come see our science lab. We did amazing experiments with Aunt Amelia." William cast one last intrigued look at Amelia before being dragged away by his daughter. The conversation would have to wait, but one thing was clear. This nanny was different, and perhaps for the first time in 3 years his daughters seemed happy. In the afternoon, an unusual scene unfolded at the Sterling mansion. In the backyard, William sat with the quadruplets, helping them plant seeds in small pots they had decorated the previous day with Amelia. It was a simple but significant activity, the kind of family moment that had become rare. "Daddy, look how Aunt Amelia ties her hair when she's working with dirt," Bella commented, trying to imitate the practical ponytail the nanny had made. "It's so her hair doesn't get dirty, smarty pants," Brooke explained. Amelia watched the scene from the porch, maintaining a respectful distance. This was a rare opportunity for father and daughters to reconnect, and she didn't want to interfere. However, William frequently glanced in her direction, as if seeking approval or guidance. A man clearly uncomfortable in his paternal role, despite his evident love for his daughters. As the sun began to set, Martha called everyone for dinner. The meal was lively, with the quadruplets dominating the conversation, telling their father all about their adventures of the past few days. William listened with genuine attention, asking questions and laughing at their stories, especially those involving their failed attempts to scare the new nanny. "And she didn't even get mad when we put salt in the sugar bowl," Brooke recounted between laughs. "Actually," Amelia intervened with a smile, "I took the opportunity to teach them about chemical reactions and why sugar and salt look the same but have different compositions." "She turns everything into a lesson, Daddy," Beatrice explained, surprisingly without resentment in her voice. "But it's fun." After dinner, while the girls took their baths, supervised by Mrs. Gable, William invited Amelia for a chat in his office. The room, dominated by dark furniture and bookshelves, reflected the reserved personality of the businessman. "Coffee?" he offered, indicating an armchair. "Yes, thank you." As he poured 2 cups, William visibly organized his thoughts. Miss Hayes, please call me Amelia. Amelia. He nodded. I must confess, I'm intrigued. My daughters are challenging children, as you know. They are children who have faced a profound loss at a very young age, Mr. Sterling. Their behavior is a natural response to trauma. William paused with the cup halfway to his mouth, clearly surprised by her frankness. Do you have a degree in psychology? Education with a specialization in early childhood development, but I've also worked with children in situations of grief and abandonment. He took a sip of coffee, processing the information. The agency didn't mention those details. They just said you had a special gift for difficult children. Amelia smiled softly. I don't believe in special gifts, Mr. Sterling. I believe in patience, understanding, and above all, authentic presence. Your daughters are extremely perceptive. They know when someone is just pretending to care. And you care? Genuinely? The question came directly, almost challenging. Yes. From the very first moment. William studied her for several seconds, as if trying to solve a particularly challenging puzzle. Why? The simplicity of the question contrasted with its depth. Amelia took a moment before answering. Because I understand what it's like to feel a void that seems impossible to fill, and because I believe that every child deserves to be seen, truly seen, for who they are, not for the behavior they exhibit when they're hurting. Something in her answer seemed to strike William deeply. He looked away, his gaze fixing on the photograph of Eleanor he kept on his desk. They miss her every day, he said finally, his voice low. Just like I do. Of course they do, and they always will in some way. True love doesn't disappear, Mr. Sterling, it transforms. William looked back at her, an unusual vulnerability in his eyes. How do you handle it so well? Their grief. Perhaps because I don't try to make them get over it. I just offer a safe space for them to feel what they need to feel, when they need to feel it. The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Bella, already in her pajamas, her hair still damp from her bath. Daddy? Aunt Amelia? Can we hear the princess story now? William looked at Amelia, questioning. It's a story. I started telling them yesterday, she explained, about 4 sister princesses with magical powers. Can we, Daddy? Please? You'll like it too. Bella's eager plea was impossible to refuse. William smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his tired face. Of course, Princess. Let's hear this story. In the girls' room, an unprecedented scene formed. The quadruplets settled in their beds, William sitting in the armchair beside them, and Amelia in the center, narrating the continuation of the story of the 4 guardian princesses. The novelty was the presence of their father, who watched with fascination not only the creative story, but especially the enthusiastic reaction of his daughters, something he hadn't witnessed in a long time. When Amelia concluded the night's chapter, leaving the princesses in a suspenseful situation to be resolved the next day, the girls were already sleepy. You tell such beautiful stories, Brianna murmured as Amelia adjusted her blanket. Thank you, dear. Now rest. We have a busy day tomorrow. One by one, Amelia and William gave the girls good-night kisses. As they were about to leave, Beatrice called her father. Will you be here tomorrow when we wake up? The question carried the weight of so many mornings when he had already left. William hesitated for only a second before answering, I'll be here, I promise. After turning off the lights, leaving only the nightlight on, William and Amelia stepped out into the hallway. For a moment they stood in silence, processing the intimacy of the moment they had just shared. You created a story about 4 sister princesses, William commented finally. Not a coincidence, I imagine. The best stories are the ones where we can see ourselves, Amelia replied. They're starting to identify with the characters, which allows them to explore difficult emotions in a safe way. William nodded slowly, impressed by her intuitive approach. You are different from the other nannies. I hope that's a good thing. It is. He hesitated, as if weighing his next words. I've never seen my daughters like this with anyone since their mother. The comment hung between them, laden with meaning. Amelia simply nodded, respecting the weight of the comparison. "Good night, Mr. Sterling." "William," he corrected. "Please call me William." "Good night, William." As they each retired to their rooms, William paused briefly before the colourful sign on Amelia's door. Aunt Amelia's room, our family. The childish letters read. Something about that simple declaration struck him deeply. For the first time in 3 years, he felt that maybe, just maybe, his house could become a home again. The next morning, William woke to the first rays of sun. For a moment, he lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the mansion awakening, the distant murmur of the staff in the kitchen, the chirping of birds in the garden, and, most surprisingly, childish laughter. His daughters rarely woke up in a good mood. He got up and went to the bathroom, observing his reflection in the mirror. The grey hairs at his temples had multiplied in recent years, and the lines around his eyes had deepened. At 42, he looked 10 years older. "What would Eleanor think, seeing me like this?" he murmured to himself. Eleanor. Even after 3 years, saying her name still caused a tightness in his chest. It was easier to dive into work than to face the pain of loss. Easier to avoid the mansion full of memories. Easier to become a ghost in his own daughters' lives. But yesterday, something had changed. The presence of Amelia Hayes seemed to have awakened something dormant in the house and in himself. After getting dressed, he went down to the kitchen following the sound of laughter. The scene he found left him momentarily speechless. The Quadruplets and Amelia, all in aprons, were preparing breakfast together. The kitchen was in an organized chaos, flour scattered on the counter, eggshells, fruit cut into various shapes. "Careful, Bella. Don't put too much food coloring," Beatrice warned, supervising her sister, who was dripping blue food coloring into a bowl. "And you two, stop eating the raw batter." Brooke tried to sound authoritative with Brianna, who was discreetly tasting the pancake mix. Amelia, at the center of this activity, calmly guided each step, answering simultaneous questions and preventing minor disasters with the naturalness of someone born for it. She was the first to notice William. "Good morning," she greeted with a smile. "I hope you don't mind the mess. We're preparing a special breakfast." The girls all turned at the same time, their surprised expressions quickly turning to joy at seeing their father. "Daddy, you're really here!" Bella exclaimed, running to hug him, her hands smeared with blue food coloring, leaving marks on his white shirt. William didn't mind the stain. He hugged his daughter and smiled at the others. "I promised I would be, didn't I? What are you making?" "Colored pancakes," Brooke explained enthusiastically. "Aunt Amelia taught us how to make them in the shape of letters. Each of us is making the first letter of our name. B for Beatrice, Brianna, Bella, and Brooke," Beatrice added proudly. "And now we're making a W for you." The innocent comment hit William with unexpected force. When was the last time his daughters had prepared something for him? When was the last time he had even had breakfast at home instead of in a rush at the office or in business meetings? "Can I help?" he offered, surprising himself. The Quadruplets exchanged astonished looks before bursting into excited exclamations. William was quickly incorporated into the process, receiving detailed instructions from his daughters on how to flip the pancake perfectly, so as not to deform the letter W. Amelia watched discreetly, her gentle smile revealing satisfaction at seeing the family dynamic flourishing. For a brief moment, their gazes met over the girls' heads, his conveying silent gratitude, hers a quiet understanding. Breakfast was served on the sunny porch instead of the formal dining room. The colorful letter-shaped pancakes were celebrated as works of art, especially the slightly crooked W that William had managed to prepare, to his daughter's delight. "You never cook, Daddy," Brianna observed between bites. "That's true. I think the last time was when—" He stopped abruptly, the memory surfacing unexpectedly. "When your mother was pregnant with you and had cravings for waffles in the middle of the night." A momentary silence fell over the table. Mentions of Eleanor were rare, almost forbidden by the tacit agreement of shared grief. "Did Mommy like waffles?" Bella asked shyly, breaking the taboo. William swallowed hard, glancing quickly at Amelia, who gave a discreet nod of encouragement. She loved them, especially with strawberries and whipped cream. During her pregnancy, she would wake up at 3 in the morning wanting waffles with crazy toppings. One time she asked for them with peanut butter and pepper jelly. The girls laughed, enchanted by this glimpse of the mother they never really knew. "And did you eat them?" Brooke asked, fascinated. "I didn't," William laughed, the initial tension dissipating. "But your mother ate too and then said it was the best thing in the world. She was funny, wasn't she?" Beatrice E. smiled, her eyes shining. "Very. She had a gift for turning any situation into something fun." William looked towards the horizon, lost for a moment in memories. Even a trip to the grocery store became an adventure with her. For several minutes, William shared small stories about Eleanor, simple everyday things he had never mentioned before. The quadruplets listened, fascinated, absorbing every detail about the mother they could never truly know. Amelia remained in respectful silence, realizing the importance of the moment. This was the first time William had spoken so openly about Eleanor with his daughters, allowing her memory to exist not as a painful shadow but as a loving presence. After breakfast, William announced he had to make some work calls, but promised to join the girls for lunch. As he retreated to his office, Amelia helped the quadruplets clean up the kitchen, turning the chore into a cooperative game. "Aunt Amelia," Brianna called while drying a plate, "why did Daddy never talk about Mommy before?" The direct question caught Amelia by surprise, but she knew the importance of answering honestly. Sometimes, when we love someone very much and that person is gone, talking about them hurts so much that we think it's easier to keep the memories to ourselves. "But does that help?" Brianna persisted, always the most reflective. "Not for long," Amelia replied softly. "It's like a wound that never gets air to heal. Over time it needs to be exposed so it can heal properly." "Is Daddy's wound healing now?" Bella asked, joining the conversation. Amelia smiled gently. "I think he's starting to let in a little fresh air. And so are you." The morning passed peacefully. While William worked in his office, Amelia helped the girls with some pending homework. They were working at the large study table when the sound of shattering glass broke the tranquility. All heads turned to Bella, who had stood up to get a pencil and accidentally knocked over a delicate crystal vase that sat on a nearby side table. The girl froze, staring in horror at the shards scattered on the floor. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "It was an accident." Amelia quickly stood up and approached the little girl. "It's okay, Bella. Accidents happen." "It's not okay!" The girl's voice rose in panic. "It was Mommy's vase. Daddy is going to be furious." Amelia looked at the shards and recognized the delicate pattern of blown glass. She had noticed the piece before, always prominently displayed in various rooms of the house, as if it periodically changed places. "It was Mommy's favorite," Beatrice explained, her voice low. "Daddy moves it to different rooms every week. He says it makes it seem like she's still moving through the house." Amelia's heart clenched at the revelation. She immediately understood the gravity of the accident. It wasn't just a broken vase. It was a symbol, one of the few tangible connections William kept with his wife. At that moment, as if summoned by the noise, William appeared at the door. His gaze fixed on the scattered shards, and a shadow crossed his face. "What happened here?" Bella began to cry silently, her small body trembling with fear and guilt. "It was an accident," Amelia intervened quickly. "Bella tripped while getting a pencil." William remained silent, his jaw tight. For a moment, everyone feared his reaction. Amelia saw the other three girls instinctively shrink back, as if expecting an explosion. Instead, William simply approached, kneeling to be at Bella's level. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice controlled. Bella shook her head, still crying. "It was Mommy's vase," she sobbed. "I know it was special." William took a deep breath, clearly struggling with his own emotions. His eyes met Amelia's for a brief second, seeking something. Strength, perhaps, or guidance. "Come with me," he said finally, extending a hand to Bella. "All of you." With a perplexed exchange of glances, the quadruplets followed their father. Amelia stayed behind, unsure if she should accompany them in this family moment, but William turned at the door. "You too, Amelia, please." The group went up the stairs in silence, heading to what Amelia soon recognized as the master bedroom. William and Eleanor's former room. It was a space she had not yet visited, respecting the unspoken boundaries of the house. The room was spacious and elegant, decorated in shades of blue and white. A large king-size bed dominated the center, but what caught everyone's attention was where William was headed, a small, carved wooden chest on a dresser. William opened it with a key he carried in his pocket. From inside, he carefully removed a large fragment of crystal, a piece of a vase identical to the one that had just been broken. "This vase has been broken before," he explained, holding the fragment. "By me, actually." 5 pairs of eyes stared at him in complete surprise. "It was 2 weeks before your mother." He hesitated, correcting himself. "Before she passed away, we had a silly argument about the decoration of your nursery. I was stressed with work and ended up gesturing without realizing the vase was behind me." William sat on the edge of the bed, inviting his daughters to come closer. "I was devastated. It was her favorite vase, a gift from our honeymoon in Murano, Italy. But do you know what your mother did?" The girls shook their heads, completely absorbed in the story. She laughed. "She picked up this largest fragment," he held up the piece of crystal, "let the light pass through it like this, creating a small rainbow on the wall, and said something I've never forgotten." William paused, visibly emotional. Amelia, watching from the doorway, felt her own eyes well up. She said, "See how the light still passes through it? That's how it is with the things we love, William. Even when they seem broken, the light finds a way through." Bella stared at the fragment, the tears drying on her little face. "Can I see?" she asked shyly. William handed the piece of crystal to his daughter. Carefully, Bella held it up to the window light, just as her father had demonstrated. A small, colored spectrum danced on the opposite wall. "A rainbow," she whispered, mesmerized. One by one, the sisters tried the same, watching in fascination as the broken crystal was still able to create beauty. "Your mother kept this piece as a talisman," William continued. "She said it was more precious now because it reminded us that broken things have value too." He looked at Bella, who was still holding the fragment, with reverence. "I'm not angry that you broke the vase, sweetheart. I was sad because it was a connection to your mother. But now I realize she would have loved for us to do the same thing we did the first time." "What did you do?" Brooke asked, curious. "We gathered the larger pieces in a special box. Not to fix the vase, but to keep its memory in a different way." William looked at Amelia, who remained discreetly at the entrance of the room. There was gratitude in his eyes, not just for how she had protected Bella, but for witnessing this moment without judgment. "Shall we go downstairs and gather the pieces?" he proposed. "We can create something new with them." The girls agreed enthusiastically. As they passed Amelia at the door, William paused briefly. "Thank you," he said softly, "for not downplaying the meaning of that vase." "Some things are more than objects," she replied gently. "They are anchors for memories." He nodded, understanding perfectly. In the study, they all knelt on the floor, carefully collecting the larger pieces of the broken vase. William told more stories about Eleanor. As they worked, how she had insisted on carrying the delicate vase in her lap for the entire flight back from Italy, refusing to check it. How she placed it in different parts of the house to capture different qualities of light. How she used to arrange wildflowers in it, instead of the sophisticated floral arrangements that decorated the rest of the mansion. For the Quadruplets, these stories were priceless treasures, fragments of the mother they had never properly known, gathered with the same care they now used to collect the pieces of crystal. After storing the fragments in a small wooden box that William brought from his office, he made a surprising proposal. "What do you think about looking at the family photo albums today?" 4 childish faces lit up at the suggestion. Family albums existed in the mansion, but they were rarely opened, another tacit agreement of unspoken grief. "Can we see pictures from your wedding?" Beatrice asked. "And from the day we were born," added Brooke. "We can see everything," William agreed. Then, turning to Amelia, "If you don't mind joining us, I know it's not part of your job to spend the day looking at old photographs." "It would be an honor," she replied sincerely. The afternoon turned into a session of memories on the large living room sofa. Old albums, some dusty from disuse, were opened and explored. The quadruplets absorbed every image of Eleanor, her radiant smile at the wedding, her serene expression as she caressed her pregnant belly, the exhausted but infinitely loving look in the few photos taken after the girl's birth, before complications took her away. William narrated each photograph, sharing stories he had kept to himself for a long time. Some made him laugh, others made him choke with restrained emotion. Occasionally, he would look at Amelia, as if seeking confirmation that he was doing the right thing by opening these emotional floodgates. Amelia stayed close, offering her silent support. She understood she was witnessing something profoundly significant, the beginning of this family's true healing process. At the end of the afternoon, after hours immersed in memories, Bella asked a question that captured the essence of the moment. "Daddy, would Mummy be sad to know we broke her vase?" William reflected for a moment before answering, "No, sweetie, your mother would be happy to know that her vase helped us talk about her today. I think she would prefer that to seeing it intact on a shelf but never mentioned." The words hung in the room, heavy with truth. Amelia realized that William was not just consoling his daughter, he was articulating an understanding that he was perhaps only now reaching. Dinner that night was lighter, more cheerful. The quadruplets, energized by their new connection to their mother's memory, shared their favorite parts of the stories they had heard. William, though visibly drained by the day's emotional toll, also seemed lighter, as if a weight had begun to dissolve. After putting the girls to bed, complete with another chapter of the Guardian Princess's story, William invited Amelia for a chat on the back porch. The evening was pleasant, with a gentle sea breeze and a sky exceptionally starry for New York standards. "It was an intense day," he commented, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "Very," Amelia agreed, accepting the drink, "but an important one." They were silent for a few moments, watching the partially moonlit garden. William seemed to be organizing his thoughts. "You know, in 3 years I've never been able to talk about Eleanor with the girls like that," he confessed finally. "I always thought I was protecting them from the pain by avoiding the subject." "It's a natural reaction," Amelia replied gently. "We want to protect children from suffering. But it didn't work, did it? Their pain just turned into destructive behavior." "And your pain, William, what did it turn into?" The direct question caught him off guard. He considered it for several seconds before answering, "Into absence, I suppose. I threw myself into work, built a bigger empire, but I became a ghost in my own daughters' lives." There was no accusation in Amelia's voice when she replied, "We all deal with grief in our own way. There's no right or wrong." "But there's better and worse for them," William observed, looking towards the rooms where his daughters slept. "And I chose the worse without realizing it." "It's never too late to change direction." William took a sip of wine, contemplative. "How did you become so wise about grief and children? The agency only mentioned your degree in education." Amelia hesitated, watching the dark liquid in her glass. This was a question that touched on her own story, one she rarely shared, but something in that moment, perhaps the raw honesty William had shown throughout the day, called for reciprocity. "I had to learn on the job," she replied finally. "My mother worked double shifts as a nurse. My father left when we were young. I ended up raising my younger brother, Leo, practically by myself." William listened with genuine attention without interrupting. "Leo had a free spirit like your daughters, curious, mischievous, full of life." Amelia smiled at the memory. "He was 8 years younger than me. From a young age, I learned to turn chores into games, to find creative ways to handle tantrums, to invent stories to make the routine more magical." Her smile faded slightly. "When he was 8, there was an accident near our house." William noticed the change in her voice. "You don't have to talk about this if it's difficult." "It's okay," Amelia assured him. "Leo was coming back from the bakery. A reckless driver lost control." She took a deep breath, the past still painful, but not paralyzing. "After that, I was lost for a while. I questioned everything I believed in. I felt like I had failed in the one responsibility that truly mattered." "I'm so sorry," William said, empathy evident in his voice. "It's a pain I know well." Amelia nodded, acknowledging the connection. "Over time, I realized I could either let that pain destroy me or find purpose in it. I decided that if I could help other children, other families going through their own valley of shadows, maybe Leo's passing would have some meaning. And that's how you became an educator? Yes. I specialized in children who had gone through trauma. I worked in social projects, shelters, schools in vulnerable areas. I learned that every child expresses pain differently, but they are all deep down just asking for the same thing: to be seen, heard, and loved unconditionally. William contemplated the garden, absorbing Amelia's words. When the agency mentioned you arrived saying you weren't here to fix anything, just to stay until the light came back, I thought it was just interview fluff. Amelia smiled softly. It's something I learned over time. We can't fix people's pain. We can only be present while they find their own way through it. And you really believe the light comes back, even after such definitive losses? The question was deeply personal, coming from a man who had remained in darkness for 3 years. The light never really leaves, William, Amelia replied with quiet conviction. Sometimes we just have to learn to see it in different ways, like the crystal fragment today, broken, but still capable of creating a rainbow. William looked at her with a new perspective. This young woman, with her simplicity and wisdom born from her own pain, was achieving what expensive therapists and well-intentioned counselors had not, helping him find a path through grief, not around it. Thank you for sharing your story, he said finally, and for everything you've done for my daughters, for this house. I'm not doing anything extraordinary. I'm just offering what we all deserve, authentic presence and the space to be exactly who we are, even when we're broken. They remained in a comfortable silence for some time, contemplating the starry sky. William felt something subtle shifting within him, not a magical resolution of his pain, but perhaps the first genuine glimpse of possibility. The possibility that, as Amelia had said, the light had never really gone. That night marked a turning point in the Sterling mansion. In the days that followed, William cancelled several meetings to spend time with his daughters. The photographs of Eleanor, once stored in rarely opened albums, began to reappear on walls and tables. Her name was mentioned again in everyday conversations, with longing, yes, but also with smiles and even laughter as they recalled her quirks and happy moments. The Quadruplets, sensing the change in atmosphere, visibly blossomed. They still had their mischievous moments, of course. They were 7-year-old children after all, but the destructive quality of their behavior had given way to a more creative and collaborative energy. Amelia watched these transformations with quiet satisfaction. As she had told William, she wasn't there to fix anything. She was just creating space for the Sterling family to find their own way back, together. On a particularly sunny afternoon, about a week after the incident with the vase, Amelia was supervising the Quadruplets in the garden as they worked on costumes for the school play. William had gone out for an important meeting he couldn't postpone, but had promised to be back in time for dinner. They were all focused on creating snowflakes with white fabric and sequins when Brianna, the most observant of the sisters, asked an unexpected question. "Aunt Amelia, why do you never talk about your brother?" The other three immediately stopped what they were doing, equally curious. Amelia realized William must have shared parts of their conversation with them. "Well, sometimes it's hard to talk about people we love very much who are no longer here," she answered honestly. "Like Mommy for Daddy?" Bella asked. "Yes, exactly like that. But Daddy is talking about Mommy now," Beatrice observed, "and it's helping us. Maybe it would help you to talk about your brother too." The child's wisdom surprised Amelia. She looked at the 4 attentive faces and realized this was an important moment, an opportunity to model exactly what she had encouraged William to do. "You're right," she agreed, setting aside the fabric she was working with. "Leo would be your age now. He loved animals, any kind. Once he brought home a frog he found on the street and insisted it would be our new pet." The girls laughed, especially Brooke, who had a similar affinity for small creatures. "Was he messy?" Bella wanted to know. "Very. His room looked like it had been hit by a tornado, but he could find anything in the middle of that mess, which always amazed me." "Like Brooke?" Beatrice exclaimed. "She never cleans her drawers, but she knows exactly where everything is." Amelia smiled, nodding. Leo also loved stories, especially superhero and adventure stories. Every night he would ask for just one more chapter, Amy. That's what he called me. Did you tell him stories like you tell us? Brianna asked. Yes, many of them made up on the spot. It was with him that I started creating the stories of the guardian princesses, you know, except in his version they were 4 warrior brothers. The quadruplets were genuinely impressed by the revelation that their favorite stories had such a personal origin. For the next hour, as they worked, on their costumes, Amelia shared more memories of Leo, his pranks, preferences, childhood dreams. When they finished, Brianna approached Amelia and handed her something she had secretly made, a small, extra snowflake, delicately decorated. "This is for you to give to Leo," she said seriously, "when you go to visit the place where he is." Amelia felt tears form in her eyes. She accepted the gift with trembling hands. "Thank you, Brianna. I'm sure he would love it." That night, when William returned and found the 5 of them in the living room, he immediately noticed that something significant had happened. There was a new quality to the connection between Amelia and his daughters, something deeper, more authentic. After the girls went to sleep, Amelia showed him the small snowflake and told him about their conversation. "They're incredible," she commented, her voice thick with emotion. "So intuitive, so compassionate under that layer of mischief. As you once said, they're just children expressing pain the only way they know how." William smiled, admiring Brianna's delicate handiwork. "Eleanor would be proud of them and grateful to you, to me, for helping them connect with her memory in a healthy way, for helping all of us." Amelia returned the smile, feeling a strange mix of fulfillment and melancholy. In just a few weeks, she had connected deeply with this family, more than with any other in her years of work. There was something special about the Sterlings, something that resonated with her own story of loss and healing. "I didn't do any more than you were all ready to do," she replied finally. "You just needed someone to believe it was possible." When William retired to his room, Amelia remained on the porch for some time, contemplating the stars. She held Brianna's small snowflake, feeling its meaning beyond the simple object. "Look, Leo," she whispered to the night sky, "it seems we've found our way, you and I, in different ways, but equally important." The gentle wind seemed to respond, caressing her face like a distant hug. Amelia closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel, just for a moment, that perhaps somehow her brother could see the good she was doing, and that, perhaps, this gave some meaning to what could never be fully understood. The next morning, upon entering the kitchen for breakfast, Amelia found a small package on the table with her name written, in William's elegant handwriting. Intrigued, she opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate crystal pendant, a fragment of Eleanor's broken vase, now polished and transformed into a simple piece of jewelry hanging from a silver chain. With it, a card with just a few words. "For the one who taught us that light always finds a way through what is broken. With gratitude, William and the girls." Amelia held the pendant up to the window light, watching as it created small rainbows on the kitchen wall. At that moment, she understood that she had become part of this family in a way she could never have predicted, and that perhaps they had also become a part of her. In the following weeks, a new routine was established in the Sterling mansion. William reorganized his work schedule to be more present, delegating responsibilities he once handled alone and reducing travel to a minimum. Mornings began with family breakfasts, often prepared by everyone together. Evenings ended with the now traditional story of the guardian princesses, told by Amelia with William as an equally attentive audience. The mansion, once silent and tense, now echoed with childish laughter and genuine conversations. Photographs of Eleanor, once again, took pride of place in various rooms, and her name was mentioned naturally as an integral part of the family that continued to be, even in her physical absence. The quadruplets visibly flourished under this new dynamic. At school, teachers noticed significant changes. Beatrice became more collaborative, channeling her natural leadership to help classmates. Brooke controlled her impulses better. Brianna participated more in group activities, and Bella showed greater confidence. At home, while still maintaining their mischievous spirit, their experiments became more constructive and less destructive. On that particular Thursday morning, Amelia watched the quadruplets in the backyard where they had set up a small vegetable garden. Each one tended to her own plot, planting different seeds and competing amicably to see which would grow fastest. "Aunt Amelia, look! I think my carrots are sprouting," Brooke exclaimed, enthusiastically pointing to tiny green shoots emerging from the soil. "Let me see." Bella ran to her sister's plot, nearly knocking over her watering can. "Be careful not to step on the plants," Beatrice warned, ever vigilant. Amelia approached, smiling as she saw the dedication with which the girls cared for their plants. What had started as a simple educational activity had turned into a passionate project for them. "They look beautiful, Brooke," she commented, kneeling to examine the small shoots. "You are all doing a wonderful job with your plants." "My lettuce is growing slower," Brianna lamented, looking at her plot with a worried expression. "Different plants have different rhythms," Amelia explained gently. "Just like people. Some bloom quickly, others take more time, but they all have their moment." Brianna smiled, comforted by the analogy. Among the four, she was the one who most resembled Amelia in temperament, reflective, observant, processing the world at her own pace. The sound of footsteps on the porch drew the group's attention. William was walking towards them, dressed in a formal suit and carrying a briefcase. "Daddy, come see our plants," Bella called, running to hug him without caring about getting his impeccable suit dirty with her earthy hands. William lifted his daughter into his arms, completely ignoring the stains on his expensive clothes, something that, weeks ago, would have been unthinkable. "I see, Princess. You're doing an amazing job here." He smiled at Amelia over Bella's head. "Good morning. Sorry I didn't have breakfast with you today. I had a video conference with Chinese investors." "No problem," Amelia replied. "The girls understood, didn't you?" The quadruplets nodded, although Brooke added, "But you promised to watch the movie with us tonight. You didn't forget, did you?" "Of course I didn't forget. The Enchanted Princess, 7 o'clock showing with popcorn and chocolate." William winked conspiratorially. "But now I have to go to the office. I have some important meetings, but I'll be back in time for the movie." He put Bella down and said goodbye to each of his daughters with a kiss. As he approached Amelia, he lowered his voice. "Sarah called. The nanny agency is asking about your stay. Apparently the initial contract was for only 3 weeks, and we're already in our 5th. Amelia felt an unexpected tightness in her chest. She was so integrated into the Sterling's routine that she had completely forgotten the temporary nature of her position. "I understand," she replied, maintaining her composure. "I can speak with the agency if you prefer, or I've already taken care of it," William interrupted quickly. "I requested an indefinite extension of the contract. I hope you're okay with that." The relief Amelia felt was disproportionate for a simple contractual matter. She smiled, nodding. I'm okay with it, yes, thank you." For a moment they looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them, the mutual recognition that her presence in that house had become something far more significant than a professional relationship. "See you later, then," William said finally, seeming to want to say more but holding back. As she watched him walk back to the house, Amelia reflected on the subtle changes in her interaction with William over the past weeks. There was a growing closeness between them, born of shared experiences and a mutual understanding of their personal histories. It wasn't something she could precisely name, but she knew she needed to be cautious, for herself and, most importantly, for the girls who had grown so attached to her. "Aunt Amelia, can we water the front flowers now?" Beatrice asked, interrupting her thoughts. "Of course," she replied, pushing aside her personal reflections. "Get the larger watering cans from the garden shed." The morning passed peacefully, with Amelia and the quadruplets dedicating themselves to the garden until lunchtime. After the meal, while the girls rested watching a documentary about oceans in the TV room, Amelia took the opportunity to organize some materials for the science lesson she planned with them for the next day. She was in the study, sorting books and equipment, when Mrs. Gable entered with a worried expression. "Amelia, have you seen the weather forecast for today?" "No. Why?" "They're forecasting a strong storm for tonight. Thunder, lightning, the whole package." Amelia immediately understood the housekeeper's concern. Storms were not just meteorological phenomena in that house, they were powerful, emotional triggers. "The last big storm was on the night Mrs. Mrs. Gable didn't finish the sentence. It wasn't necessary. I understand. Do the girls get particularly upset? Terrified would be the word. In the first year, it was impossible to calm them during storms. They would scream for their mother, cry inconsolably. It's gotten a little better recently, but it's still difficult. Amelia nodded, processing the information. And William? The housekeeper sighed. He doesn't handle it well either. He usually locks himself in his office with a bottle of whiskey. He tries to stay strong in front of the girls, but the pain is overwhelming, Amelia completed softly. Exactly, I thought you should know to be prepared. Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Gable. I'll think of something to help them. When the housekeeper left, Amelia remained thoughtful. She understood that despite all the progress of the past weeks, there were deeper layers of pain still unprocessed in that family. The approaching storm would be not just a climatic phenomenon, but a test for the new dynamic they had been building. Determined to help them face this challenge, Amelia began to plan. She set aside the science materials and went to her room, where she opened her small suitcase. From an inner pocket, she took out a fabric-wrapped package, a set of aromatic candles she always carried with her, a gift from her late grandmother, who believed in the power of light to ward off fears and sorrows. In the afternoon, when the quadruplets returned to the study to do their homework, Amelia noticed they were more restless than usual. Through the window, dark clouds could already be seen forming on the horizon, heralding the predicted storm. Aunt Amelia, is it true there's going to be a thunderstorm today? Asked Bella, the most sensitive of the four, as she tried to concentrate on her math exercises. Amelia opted for honesty. Yes, dear, the forecast indicates a storm for tonight. The quadruplets exchanged apprehensive glances, the anxiety immediately visible on their little faces. Brianna began to bite her nails, a habit that only appeared in situations of extreme stress. But you know what? Amelia continued. I was thinking we could do something special tonight, a kind of indoor camp-out. Camp-out? Brooke repeated, momentarily distracted from her apprehension. Yes, with tents made of sheets in the living room, stories, special snacks. We can turn the stormy night into an adventure. Beatrice, always the most practical, seemed skeptical. But what about the thunder? And what if the power goes out? I have beautiful aromatic candles we can light all over the house. And as for the thunder, Amelia smiled mysteriously. Have you ever heard that they're actually the sound of the guardian princesses defending the kingdom of the clouds? The girl's eyes widened, intrigued by this new perspective on the phenomenon they feared so much. What do you mean? Bella asked, already half convinced by the mere mention of her favorite characters. It's a special story, one I've saved for a night like this, Amelia explained. But I can only tell it if you finish your homework and help me prepare our camp-out. The plan worked perfectly. The prospect of the special adventure gave the quadruplets a new focus, temporarily pushing away the fear of the impending storm. With renewed enthusiasm, they dedicated themselves to finishing their school tasks and then helped Amelia rearrange the living room, transforming it into a cozy, makeshift campsite. When William arrived home in the early evening, he found a surprising scene. The spacious living room had been transformed with suspended sheets, creating colorful tents, pillows and duvets scattered on the floor, and small LED candles, a safe alternative to real candles, creating a warm atmosphere. The quadruplets ran to greet him, excitedly explaining the preparations for the storm camp-out. Aunt Amelia said we're going to have an adventure instead of being scared, Beatrice explained. And she's going to tell a special story about thunder, Bella added, jumping with excitement. William looked over his daughters' heads at Amelia, who was supervising the placement of more pillows. There was gratitude in his eyes, but also a vulnerability she rarely saw, the memory of what that night meant to him. It seems you all had an incredible idea, he commented, trying to keep his tone light for his daughters. Can I join the camp-out after I shower? Yes, the girls exclaimed in unison. We have a special spot for you too. While William went upstairs to change, Amelia finalized the preparations in the kitchen. Martha had helped prepare special snacks, small sandwiches, fruit cut into fun shapes, caramelized popcorn and hot chocolate. In the refrigerator, water bottles had been transformed into magic potions, with natural food coloring and labels decorated by the girls themselves. The sky was already completely dark when William returned, wearing casual clothes, a rarity for him, even at home. The first drops of rain began to fall, drumming on the mansion's roof. "It's starting," he murmured to Amelia, as the girls arranged the final details of their tents. "It's going to be okay," she replied softly. "We're going to give them a new association with storms. A positive one." William nodded, visibly trying to control his own emotions. "What can I do to help?" "Just be present, truly present." The first clap of thunder rumbled in the distance. The quadruplets immediately froze, looking at each other with apprehension. Bella ran to Amelia, clinging to her leg. "It's starting, Aunt Amy," she whispered, fear evident in her voice. Amelia knelt, bringing herself to the girl's eye level. "It's okay, sweetie. We're all together, safe and warm in here, and you know what? I think it's time for our special story." With calm gestures, Amelia lit a few more LED candles, creating a circle of soft light in the center of the room. She invited everyone to sit on the pillows, forming an intimate circle. Martha brought the snacks and hot chocolate, and Mrs. Gable, who usually maintained a professional distance, decided to join the group, sitting discreetly in a corner. When everyone was settled, Amelia began her story, her voice melodic and engaging. Long, long ago, when the world was still new and humans did not yet understand the mysteries of the sky, there was a kingdom in the clouds, ruled by 4 powerful princesses, the same guardian princesses from our stories. Each controlled an element of nature: earth, water, fire, and air. The quadruplets, though anxious about the intensifying storm outside, were immediately captivated. This was an extension of their favorite story, after all. The princesses had the important mission of maintaining the balance between the sky and the earth, and do you know how they did it? Through the storms. A particularly loud thunderclap made Bella jump. Amelia gently held her hand, continuing without interruption. "What we call thunder is actually the sound of the air princess's magic drums, summoning her sisters for the dance of the waters. The lightning bolts are the fire princess's swords of light, cutting through the dark clouds that try to swallow the world." Brooke's eyes widened, fascinated by the reinterpretation of the phenomena that so frightened her. "The rain," Amelia continued, "are the tears of joy from the water princess, nourishing the dry earth and bringing new life. And when it all ends, the earth princess receives these gifts, transforming them into flowers, trees, and food for all living things." Another clap of thunder resonated, and Brianna squeezed Beatrice's hand. But there was less fear in her eyes now, replaced by a growing curiosity. "So when we hear a storm, we are not listening to destruction or danger. We are witnessing a cosmic dance, a celebration of the cycle of life. The princesses are working together to renew the world." William watched, amazed, as the simple yet powerful story was reshaping his daughter's experience. The storm continued outside, as intense as predicted, but within the circle of light created by Amelia, there was an almost magical atmosphere of safety and fascination. "And do you know the most special secret of the storms?" Amelia lowered her voice, as if sharing a great mystery. "It's that the princesses only dance like this to protect those they love. Every clap of thunder is a reminder that, even on the darkest nights, there are powerful guardians watching over us." The girls absorbed every word, their fears gradually turning into reverence. Even Bella, the most frightened initially, was now listening with shining eyes, momentarily forgetting to flinch at each thunderclap. "So the next time you hear thunder, instead of being afraid, you can thank the princesses for their dance. You can even dance along if you want." As if on cue, a flash of lightning illuminated the room through the windows, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. But instead of panic, Brooke exclaimed, "It's the fire princess with her sword of light." The others laughed, beginning to incorporate the new narrative. Even William seemed touched, a slight smile replacing the tension on his face. The evening continued with more stories, improvised games, and the special snack. When the storm reached its peak, instead of hiding in terror, The quadruplets interpreted the sounds, identifying which princess would be doing what. They still occasionally startled at particularly loud claps of thunder, but the atmosphere of panic had been replaced by an almost playful experience. Around 10 o'clock, exhausted from the day's emotions and activities, the girls began to fall asleep in their makeshift tents. William and Amelia tucked them in carefully, making sure they were comfortable. "They'll be fine here," Amelia whispered. "I think it's better not to move them to their room. The familiar environment might trigger the anxiety again." William nodded, looking tenderly at his sleeping daughters. "What you did tonight was extraordinary. I just offered a new perspective." "No, it was much more than that." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "You transformed one of their most traumatic experiences into something beautiful, something that could help them for the rest of their lives." Amelia smiled softly. "That's what we try to do with pain, isn't it? We don't deny or suppress it, but we find ways to transform it into something we can carry without being crushed by it." William studied her for a moment, as if seeing something new in her face. "Would you like some tea on the porch? The rain has eased up a bit." The offer surprised Amelia, but she accepted. Together they walked to the covered porch that overlooked the backyard. The storm had indeed lost some of its intensity, turning into a steady but less dramatic rain. The air was fresh and filled with the scent of wet earth. William prepared 2 cups of chamomile tea at the small porch table. For a few minutes they sat in silence, watching the rain and listening to the now distant thunder. "It was on a night like this," he said finally, his voice low. "Exactly 3 years ago." Amelia didn't respond, giving him space to continue if he wished. Eleanor wasn't feeling well that afternoon. The doctor had recommended complete bed rest for the last few weeks because of the high-risk pregnancy, but she hated staying still. He smiled sadly at the memory. When the storm started, she insisted on staying on the porch, watching. She said she loved the smell of the rain, the energy in the air. Amelia listened attentively, honored by the trust he was showing in sharing something so intimate and painful. That's where her water broke 2 months early. The panic and the race to the hospital in the pouring rain, the hours of agony. His voice broke. The doctors managed to save the girls, but Eleanor had a massive hemorrhage. By the time they let me see her, it was too late. She was conscious but very weak. Her last words were about the girls. She asked me to make sure they always knew how much they were loved, that they were her miracle. A single tear rolled down William's face, lost in his stubble. I failed her. Amelia, not only did I fail to keep her memory alive for our daughters, but I also failed to give them the love and attention they deserved. I drowned in my own pain and left them to deal with theirs. You didn't fail, Amelia replied gently. You were doing the best you could with the emotional tools you had available. Grief doesn't come with an instruction manual, William. Even so, it was 3 lost years. Not lost, perhaps diverted, but you found your way back to each other. That's what matters. A distant thunderclap reverberated like an echo of the events of that fateful night 3 years ago. Your story about the princesses and the storm, William commented after a moment. Was it improvised, or had you already planned it? A bit of both. My grandmother used to tell similar stories when I was a child. She said that fear comes from misunderstanding, and that stories help us make sense of what we fear. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She taught me almost everything I know about dealing with children and with life in general. William observed her with renewed curiosity. You're an enigma, Amelia Hayes. You arrive here with a small suitcase and a worn Bible, with no impressive references or revolutionary methods, and in a few weeks you completely transform a house that has been adrift for years. Amelia smiled, a little embarrassed by the observation. I didn't do anything extraordinary, I just stayed when everyone else left. That's exactly what is extraordinary. He hesitated, as if measuring his next words. The girls aren't the only ones who are different since you arrived. I've changed too. Changed how? She asked softly. William contemplated the rain for a few seconds before answering. More present, more connected, less lost, I think. It's as if you opened windows in a house that had been shut for a long time. The air is still the same, but somehow it feels easier to breathe. The honesty of the confession touched Amelia deeply. She realized they were entering dangerously personal territory, something that went beyond the bounds of the professional relationship she was supposed to maintain. "I'm glad to hear that," she replied finally, opting for simplicity. "You and the girls deserve this reconnection?" A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by the rhythmic sound of the rain. For a few minutes they remained that way, each lost in their own thoughts. "You know," William said finally, "Eleanor would have liked you very much." The observation caught Amelia off guard. "You think so?" "I'm sure of it. She valued authenticity above all else. She used to say she could feel when people were genuine, and you, Amelia, are the most authentic person I've met in a long time." The comment, made with such sincerity, created an atmosphere of intimacy that Amelia knew it was best not to encourage. Gently, she steered the conversation back to safer ground. "The girls inherited a lot from her then. I can feel the authenticity in each of them, even when they're trying to play tricks on me." She smiled, remembering the initial pranks. William laughed softly, accepting the change of subject. "That's true. Especially Brianna. She has that same piercing gaze Eleanor had, as if she could see right through people." The conversation flowed to lighter topics, stories about the Quadruplets' personalities as babies, plans for the weekend, ideas for the upcoming school festival. The storm gradually dissipated, leaving only a fine, steady rain, almost comforting. When they finally said goodnight to go to bed, it was well past midnight. William paused briefly at the living room door, watching his daughters asleep in their makeshift camp. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly. "For everything." Amelia just smiled in response. As she headed to her room, she reflected on how complex her role in that house was becoming. She had crossed into dangerous emotional territory, and she would need to be careful not to create expectations, in the girls or in herself, that could not be sustained in the long run. However, lying in her bed, listening to the last drops of rain on the window, Amelia couldn't deny an uncomfortable truth. She too had been changed by her experience with the Sterlings. Somehow that family had infiltrated her heart in a way no other had in her years of working with children. The next morning dawned clear and fresh, the sky an intense blue after the storm. The Quadruplets woke up excited in their campsite, with no sign of the terror they usually associated with stormy nights. "Aunt Amelia, we slept the whole night in the living room," Bella exclaimed, astonished by her own feat. "And I didn't even have nightmares," Brianna added shyly, as if confessing a secret. "The guardian princesses protected us," Brooke stated with conviction. Amelia smiled, pleased to see how her strategy had worked. "They always protect, even when we don't realize it." William, who had come down to join them for breakfast, watched the scene with evident emotion. For him, this transformation was almost miraculous. His daughters, who for 3 years had been terrified by storms, now spoke of the experience with almost mystical enthusiasm. During breakfast, the Quadruplets excitedly discussed their adventure from the previous night, making plans for the next indoor campout and elaborating theories about which princesses governed which aspects of the storms. "Can we draw pictures of the princesses controlling the storm today?" Beatrice asked. "I want to draw the fire princess with her sword of light." "Great idea," Amelia agreed. "They can be illustrations for our story." As the girls finished eating, William discreetly approached Amelia. "I have to go to the office today, but I promised to take them to the botanical garden this weekend. Would you join us?" "Of course," she replied. "They would love that." "Actually," he hesitated for a moment, "I would like you to come too. It's a special place for our family. Eleanor and I used to go there every week before. I understand it would be an honor to accompany you." The rest of the morning followed the usual routine, organizing the house, the girls' homework, preparations for school the following week. But there was something different in the air, a lightness, a sense that an important obstacle had been overcome. In the afternoon, while the Quadruplets worked on their drawings of the guardian princesses controlling the storm, Amelia received a call from the Nanny agency. She stepped away to take it in private. "Miss Hayes," the coordinator began, "I'm checking on..." Your situation at the Sterling residence. Mr. Sterling has requested an indefinite extension of your contract, which is quite unusual. Is everything all right over there? Yes, everything's great, Amelia assured her. The girls are adapting well, and I believe my presence has been beneficial for them. No doubt. Mr. Sterling was quite emphatic about that. In fact, I've never seen him so insistent on keeping an employee. There was an insinuation in the coordinator's voice that made Amelia uncomfortable. I'm just doing my job, she replied firmly. The Quadruplets are wonderful children who needed stability and understanding. Certainly. Well, the contract is updated then. Remember that if you need any support or guidance, we are at your disposal. After hanging up, Amelia remained thoughtful for a few moments. The call had brought up issues she had been trying to ignore, about the nature of her relationship with the Sterling family and the professional boundaries she needed to maintain. Back in the room, she found the girls proudly displaying their drawings. Each had depicted a different guardian princess. Beatrice drew the fire princess with flaming hair and a gleaming sword. Brooke created the water princess, surrounded by colorful drops. Brianna represented the earth princess with flowers sprouting around her, and Bella illustrated the air princess amidst clouds and whirlwinds. They're beautiful, Amelia praised sincerely. We can hang them on the wall in your room. That way, during the next storm, you'll have the princesses nearby. The suggestion was met with enthusiasm. Together, they created a small gallery in the Quadruplets' room, arranging the drawings in a harmonious composition. As they worked, Brianna, always the most observant, noticed something on Amelia's face. Are you sad, Aunt Amy? The girl's keen perception surprised Amelia. Not sad, dear. Just thoughtful. About what? Amelia considered how to answer honestly without causing anxiety. About how things change, how sometimes things that used to scare us, like storms, can turn into something beautiful when seen from a different perspective. Brianna nodded seriously, absorbing the reflection with a maturity beyond her 7 years. Like Mommy's broken vase, she said finally. Now it's a pretty necklace. Amelia instinctively touched the crystal pendant William had given her, surprised by the profound wisdom contained in the child's simple observation. Exactly like that, Brianna. Exactly like that. That night, when William returned from the office, he brought a surprise, a small but powerful telescope. I thought that since the princesses live in the clouds, you might want to explore the sky more, he explained to his delighted daughters. The weather is clear after the storm, perfect for stargazing. The idea generated immediate excitement. After dinner, everyone headed to the backyard, where William set up the equipment with the enthusiastic help of the Quadruplets. Look, Daddy, a shooting star, Bella exclaimed, pointing to a luminous trail in the sky. Quick, make a wish, Amelia encouraged. The girls closed their eyes, concentrating on their secret wishes. When they finished, Brooke approached Amelia. I'm not going to tell you. My wish, or it won't come true, she whispered conspiratorially, but it has to do with you staying with us forever. The innocent comment hit Amelia with unexpected force. She looked at William, who was adjusting the telescope, and at the other girls, so visibly happy and secure. Something inside her contracted with a mixture of joy and apprehension. How about we look at the moon through the telescope now, she suggested, gently deflecting the topic. The night continued with astronomical discoveries and more stories about the guardian princesses, now expanded to include adventures in space. When the girls finally went to bed, exhausted but happy, Amelia found herself alone again with William on the porch. Today was an important day, he commented, contemplating the starry sky. First storm without trauma, first step beyond the fear that imprisoned them. Yes, it was significant, Amelia agreed. They are incredibly resilient. Thanks to you. No, William. The resilience was always in them. I just offered them tools so they could recognize and use it. He smiled, appreciating her modesty, but insisted. Even so, what you've done for this family in a few weeks is something I can never properly repay. Amelia realized she needed to establish some clarity in the situation. You don't need to repay me, it's my job after all. Your job. William repeated the words slowly, as if testing their meaning. Is that how you see it? Just a job? The question hung between them, laden with implications. Amelia chose her next words carefully. It's more than a job, of course. I've developed a genuine affection for the girls, for all of you. But we need to maintain some perspective. William nodded slowly, understanding the underlying message. You're right, as always. I'm sorry if I sounded inappropriate. Not at all, she assured him quickly. I just think it's important that we're clear about expectations, for the girls' sake, especially. I understand perfectly. An uncomfortable silence followed, the first since they had begun to build their friendship. Amelia felt she had erected a necessary barrier, but also lamented the loss of the ease that had characterized their previous interactions. I think I'll go to bed, she said finally. Tomorrow will be a long day. Of course. Good night, Amelia. As she walked to her room, Amelia felt torn. She knew she had done the right thing, setting clear boundaries before the situation became more complicated. However, she couldn't deny the attachment she felt to that family, not just to the Quadruplets, but also to William, to Mrs. Gable, to Martha, to the whole dynamic they had built together. In her room, before sleeping, Amelia picked up her worn Bible and opened it to one of the Psalms that comforted her most. As she read, she distractedly touched the crystal pendant around her neck, a fragment of something broken that, as she herself had taught the girls, still allowed light to pass through, creating beauty in a different way. The weekend arrived with a clear sky and a gentle breeze, perfect for the trip to the botanical garden that William had promised. The Quadruplets woke up exceptionally early, eager for the adventure. From breakfast on, the excitement was palpable. Beatrice organized a small backpack with essentials. Brooke set aside a magnifying glass to observe insects. Brianna leafed through a book about plants, and Bella simply bounced from one foot to the other, unable to contain her animation. Amelia watched the activity with a smile, helping with preparations while maintaining a calculated distance from William. The conversation from the previous night had created a subtle barrier between them, necessary, she knew, but still uncomfortable. Aunt Amelia, have you ever been to the botanical garden? Bella asked, interrupting her thoughts. Once, when I first moved to the city. It's a beautiful place. We used to go a lot with Mommy, Brianna commented. She loved the orchids. And the lake with the water lilies, Beatrice added. She said they were like floating thrones for fairies. William, who was entering the kitchen at that moment, paused briefly upon hearing the comment. A melancholic smile crossed his face. That's true. Your mother had stories for every corner of that garden. Do you remember them, Daddy? Brooke asked, her eyes shining with hope. William seemed momentarily lost, as if searching through long-stored memories. Some of them, he replied finally. Maybe I'll remember more when we're there. The drive to the botanical garden was lively, with the girls singing in the back seat of the family SUV, something they rarely did before Amelia's arrival. William drove, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror at his daughters with an expression of admiration, as if he couldn't believe the transformation they had undergone. Amelia, sitting in the passenger seat, kept the conversation flowing, but noticed the residual tension between her and William. There was an excessive carefulness in their interactions, as if they were both walking on eggshells. The New York Botanical Garden welcomed them with its imposing avenue of imperial palms. The Quadruplets, who hadn't visited the place since before their mother's passing, reacted with a mixture of renewed fascination and nostalgia. Look, Daddy, the palm trees are even taller, Brooke exclaimed, craning her neck to try to see the tops of the trees. That's because you're still small, Beatrice teased with a mischievous smile. I'm not small. I've grown 2 inches since my birthday. Amelia intervened before the argument could escalate. How about we explore the garden? We can start at the orchid house since it was your mother's favorite place. The suggestion was met with unanimous enthusiasm. William cast her a grateful look for changing the subject and, more significantly, for normalizing mentions of Eleanor without it causing discomfort. The orchid house was a magical space, filled with rare and colorful species. The quadruplets wandered from one corner to another, marveling at the extraordinary shapes and colors. Brianna, normally the most reserved, seemed especially touched by the environment. "Mommy used to say that orchids were like people," she commented, closely observing a delicate pink species, each one unique with its own beauty. William knelt beside his daughter, his hand gently touching the small flower. "She used to say you were like an orchid, Brianna, quiet, observant, blooming at your own pace." The girl turned to her father, surprised. "She said that about me?" "Yes. She had analogies for each of you. Beatrice was a sunflower, strong, always turned towards the light. Brooke was a climbing vine, full of energy, always seeking new paths. And Bella was a daisy, simple in appearance, but with a joy that lit up everything around her." The quadruplets absorbed the words with fascination, discovering a new connection with the mother they barely knew. "And Mrs. Eleanor?" Amelia asked softly. "What flower would she be?" William looked at her, momentarily surprised by the personal question, but answered with a genuine smile. "A jabuticaba tree." "A fruit tree?" Amelia raised her eyebrows, intrigued. Eleanor hated being compared to delicate flowers. She said she wanted to be a tree that bears fruit, that nourishes, that endures. The jabuticaba was her favorite because, as she would say, it bears flowers and fruit directly on its trunk. It doesn't need branches to express itself. The description made Amelia smile, imagining what kind of extraordinary woman Eleanor Sterling had been. She sounded incredible. "She was," William agreed, his gaze lost in memories for a moment. Then, returning to reality, he asked his daughters, "Who wants to see the water lilies now?" The group continued through the garden, visiting the different sections. The water lily pond, as expected, astonished the girls. The enormous circular leaves floating like green platforms on the dark water. "Daddy, tell us the story about the fairies," Bella pleaded. William hesitated for just an instant before beginning. "Well, your mother used to say that at night when no one is looking, tiny fairies come out from their hiding places among the trees. They use the water lilies as ballrooms, dancing under the moonlight." As William continued the story, elaborating on details he was recalling, Amelia discreetly stepped away, giving them space for this family moment. She walked to a nearby bench from where she could watch them without interfering. The scene was touching. William, kneeling among his 4 daughters, gesturing animatedly as he recreated the magical world Eleanor had invented for them. The girls listened, fascinated, their faces lit up with a joy that came not just from the story itself, but from the rediscovered connection with both their parents, the one who was there and the one who lived on in their memories. "They're a beautiful family," a voice commented beside her. Amelia turned to find an elderly woman who had sat down on the same bench. "Yes, they are special," she replied with a smile. "Your daughters?" The question caught Amelia by surprise. "Oh, no, I'm just the nanny." The woman studied her for a moment, her wise eyes seeming to see beyond the words. "Just the nanny?" she repeated with an enigmatic smile. "You know, when I was young, I was also just the nanny for a family. 47 years later, we're still together. Some bonds transcend the simple definitions we try to give them." Before Amelia could respond, the woman stood up with the help of a cane. "Have a good day, dear, and remember, sometimes the role we believe we're playing is just the beginning of a much larger story." With those words, she slowly walked away, leaving Amelia immersed in reflection. Her gaze returned to the Sterlings. William was now showing them something in the pond. The girls clustered around him, the 5 of them forming a picture of family harmony that would have been unimaginable just a few weeks ago. What was her real role here? She had entered that house as a professional, with clear boundaries and defined objectives. But with each passing day, those boundaries seemed more blurred, the objectives more complex. Her thoughts were interrupted by Bella, who was running towards her. "Aunt Amelia, come see. There's a beautiful bird near the lake." Amelia let herself be led by the small, eager hand, temporarily pushing aside her worries. The rest of the outing passed in a light-hearted atmosphere, with a picnic under ancient trees, visits to the greenhouses, and many shared stories. On the way back home, the quadruplets fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the adventure. A comfortable silence settled between the adults, until William broke it softly. "Thank you for today." "You don't need to thank me. It was a wonderful day. Not just for the outing, for creating the space for me to reconnect with Eleanor's memories without it being paralyzing, for showing the girls that we can honor their mother without it being just sad." Amelia looked at him, recognizing the sincerity in his words. "It's a natural healing process. You just needed a little push." William kept his eyes on the road, but his voice took on a more personal note. "About last night. I want to apologize if I overstepped any boundaries. You don't need to apologize. We're adults navigating an emotionally complex situation. It's understandable that there might be occasional confusion." "There's no confusion on my part," he replied with surprising clarity. "I admire you deeply, Amelia. What you've done for my daughters, for this family, it goes beyond professional. And yes, that awakens feelings I haven't experienced in a long time." Amelia felt her heart race at the frankness of his declaration. She chose her next words carefully. "William, I also feel a genuine affection for all of you, more than would be conventional in a professional relationship, but we need to be cautious, for your children's sake, especially." "I understand that better than anyone," he assured her. "I'm not asking for anything, nor expecting anything. I just wanted you to know that my feelings, whatever they may be, are sincere. They are not confused gratitude or idealization." The subject hung between them, delicate yet honest. For the rest of the drive, they talked about lighter topics, plans for the week, the upcoming school play, the progress of the girls' small garden. When they arrived home, William carried Bella and Brianna inside, while Amelia helped Beatrice and Brooke, still sleepy. They put the girls to rest in their beds, agreeing that dinner would be later that day. Amelia retreated to her room, feeling the need for some time alone to process everything: the day, the conversation, the conflicting feelings she was experiencing. She sat in the armchair by the window, looking out at the garden where, weeks ago, the quadruplets had set their first traps to scare her away. It felt like a lifetime since those initial days of distrust and testing. A light knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting to find one of the girls. To her surprise, it was Mrs. Gable who appeared, carrying a tray with tea and cookies. "I thought you might like a snack after a busy day," the housekeeper explained, placing the tray on the small table. "That's very kind, thank you." Instead of leaving immediately, as was her custom, Mrs. Gable hesitated at the door. "May I tell you something, Amelia?" "Of course." The elderly woman sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing her impeccably white apron. "I've worked for the Sterling family for almost 20 years. I saw Mr. Sterling meet Mrs. Eleanor. I saw their wedding, the birth of the girls." Her voice quavered slightly. "And I also saw the destruction her loss caused." Amelia listened attentively, intrigued by this unusual openness from the always reserved housekeeper. "For the past 3 years, this house has been a place of shadows, even on the sunniest days. Until you arrived." "Mrs. Gable, let me finish, please." The woman held up a hand, determined to say what she had come to say. "I don't know what's going on between you and Mr. Sterling, and it's none of my business. But I know what I see. I see light returning to this house. I see 4 little girls becoming real children again. I see a man who was just existing, starting to live again." Amelia felt a lump in her throat, touched by the sincere words. "It's my job, Mrs. Gable. I only did what—" "No," the housekeeper interrupted firmly. "Don't diminish what you've done. 12 professional nannies came before you, some with impressive credentials, specializations, innovative methods. None of them achieved what you've achieved in just a few weeks." She stood up, smoothing her apron once more, a gesture Amelia realized was her coping mechanism for intense emotions. "I just wanted you to know that whatever your decision about staying here or about other matters, you have already left a mark that will not be forgotten." Before Amelia could respond, Mrs. Gable quickly left, leaving her alone again, but now with even more questions swirling in her mind. The tea grew cold in the cup as Amelia tried to organize her thoughts. The housekeeper's words, combined with those of the mysterious old woman in the garden, seemed to converge on a message she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. The truth, which Amelia had been trying to deny to herself, was that her connection with the Sterling family went far beyond professional. There was something there, in the way the quadruplets looked at her, in the ease with which William shared his most intimate thoughts with her, in the way everyone in the house had begun to orbit around her, like planets seeking the light of the sun. Even more unsettling was the realization that she herself had begun to see them not as a temporary assignment, but as family. A family that filled the void left by the loss of her brother, that gave purpose to her own healing process. Her thoughts were interrupted by a lively knock on the door, the unmistakable rhythm of Bella's small knuckles. "Aunt Amelia, are you sleeping?" "No, dear, you can come in." The door opened, and not just Bella, but all 4 girls entered, already recovered from their nap and full of renewed energy. "We have a super cool idea," Beatrice announced, clearly the group's spokesperson. "It's about Daddy's birthday," Brooke explained. "Which is in 2 weeks," Brianna added. "And we want to throw him a surprise party," Bella concluded, jumping with excitement. Amelia smiled, momentarily distracted from her reflections by the contagious animation. "A surprise party. That's wonderful. Do you have a plan in mind?" The 4 sat on her bed, forming a conspiratorial circle. Beatrice, naturally assuming the role of leader, explained, "We've never had a party for him since Mommy. You know. He always says he doesn't need to celebrate, that it's just another day." "But it's not just another day," Brooke continued. "It's the day he was born. And Mommy always threw surprise parties for him," Brianna added. "Mrs. Gable told us. And we want to do the same," Bella concluded. Amelia looked at the 4 determined little faces, feeling a wave of tenderness. Even after everything they had been through, they still possessed this extraordinary capacity to love and to want to show that love. "I think it's an incredible idea," she approved. "Where do you want to start?" For nearly an hour they planned the details of the surprise celebration. The quadruplets had ambitious ideas, from hiring a band to turning the entire garden into an amusement park, which Amelia gently helped them adapt into something more achievable but equally special. They decided on an intimate party in the backyard, with William's favorite dishes, decorations made by the girls themselves, and a musical performance where the quadruplets would sing a special song. "We have to practice every day until then," Beatrice determined, already organizing a mental schedule. "And make drawings to decorate everything," Bella added. "And letters," Brianna suggested. "Each of us will write a letter to Daddy." "And presents," Brooke completed. "We can make presents with things from our garden." Amelia smiled, delighted by their genuine enthusiasm. The idea for the party had come from them, without any external suggestion, a clear sign of their emotional healing and growth. "I'm sure it will be the best birthday your father has ever had," she commented. "But you have to promise not to tell him anything," Beatrice warned seriously. "It's a super important secret." "I solemnly promise," Amelia replied, making a zip-the-lips gesture that drew giggles from the girls. When the quadruplets finally left to begin their secret preparations, Amelia allowed herself a moment to absorb what had just happened. Amidst all her doubts and questions about her place in that family, the girls had, without realizing it, offered a clear answer. They trusted her to help them create a meaningful moment for their father. They trusted that she would be there for the next 2 weeks, and probably beyond. This trust carried an enormous responsibility, not just to keep the secret of the party, but to be worthy of the faith they placed in her, to not disappoint them, as so many adults had done before. As she prepared to go downstairs and help with dinner, Amelia felt a clarity that had been absent hours before. Regardless of the emotional complications, the blurred professional boundaries, the uncertain future, there was one certainty: her commitment to these 4 little girls who had found a way into her heart, a commitment she could not, would not, break. With this resolution in mind, Amelia went down the stairs, ready to face whatever came next on this unexpected journey with the Sterlings, In the kitchen, she found William helping Martha prepare dinner, another notable change in his routine. He looked up as she entered, and they exchanged a simple smile, yet one laden with mutual understanding. For now that was enough. The coming days would bring their own challenges and revelations. But at that moment, in the brightly lit kitchen, filled with the aroma of home-cooked food, with the sound of the quadruplets' laughter coming from the living room, Amelia felt exactly where she was supposed to be. And for the first time in a long time, she was not afraid of what that might mean. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of secret activities at the Sterling mansion. The quadruplets dedicated every free moment to preparing for their father's surprise party, always under Amelia's discreet supervision. They created colorful decorations, tirelessly rehearsed their special song, and prepared heartfelt, handmade gifts, from framed drawings to small pots with seedlings from their garden. William, absorbed in an important project at work, didn't notice the conspiracy unfolding right under his nose. When he questioned the sudden whispers that ceased upon his approach, he easily accepted the secret school project's excuse his daughters offered. For Amelia, this period brought a renewed clarity. The girls' determination to create a special moment for their father after years without celebrations was a testament to how much they had grown emotionally, and her own role in this transformation, though she sought no credit, was undeniable. On the eve of the birthday, after tucking the quadruplets into bed, a difficult task given their excitement for the next day's surprise, Amelia found William on the back porch, his usual refuge on quiet nights. "Good evening," she greeted, maintaining a respectful distance. Over the past weeks, they had established a comfortable dynamic, friendly, warm, but carefully restrained. "Good evening," he replied, gesturing to the chair beside him. "Just put the little monsters to bed?" "Yes, though put is a euphemism. I believe they're still awake, plotting something." Amelia smiled, feeling slightly guilty for the half-truth. "They've been mysterious lately," William commented. "Do you know what they're up to?" "I have a vague idea," she replied diplomatically, "but I've sworn absolute secrecy." William laughed, shaking his head. "All right, I'll respect the female code of silence." For a few minutes they sat in comfortable silence, watching the starry sky. It was a clear night, with an almost full moon illuminating the meticulously cared-for garden, another sign of the renewal that had taken place in that home. "Did you get the email from the school about next week's performance?" Amelia asked, breaking the silence. "About the snowflakes, yes. Are the costumes ready?" "Almost. Just a few details left on the headpieces. The girls are so excited. It'll be their first performance." "And I'll be there," William stated with conviction. "I've already rearranged my entire schedule to ensure I'm in the front row." Amelia smiled, remembering the William she had met 2 months ago, a man who delegated school events to secretaries and nannies, always with some unavoidable meeting as an excuse. "They'll be thrilled." "All thanks to you," he said, turning to face her, directly. "Before you arrived, I could barely manage a meal without a disaster, let alone create meaningful memories with my daughters." "Don't give me so much credit," Amelia protested softly. "You were always the father they needed. You just needed to find your way back to that role." William reflected on her words, his eyes returning to the garden. "I turn 43 tomorrow," he commented, seemingly changing the subject. "It's the first birthday since Eleanor passed that I'm not facing with complete indifference or even resentment. Why is that? Because I finally feel I have something to celebrate beyond just another year of survival." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "When you lose someone who is the center of your world, holidays become just painful reminders of what's missing. But now I feel like our family is relearning how to celebrate life." Amelia nodded, understanding perfectly what he was describing. She had gone through a similar process after losing Leo. "Life always finds a way to continue," she commented. "Like your plants after the storm, bent perhaps, but not broken, ready to grow again when the sun returns." William observed her with that look that had become familiar, a mixture of admiration and something deeper that they both avoided naming. "You have a gift for turning profound wisdom into simple words, you know that?" Amelia smiled, slightly embarrassed. "I'm just repeating what I learned from my grandmother. She had a saying for every situation in life. Well, your grandmother must have been an extraordinary woman, just like you. The compliment hung between them, laden with unspoken meaning. For a moment, Amelia allowed herself to imagine a different future than the one she had planned, a future there with the Sterlings, not just as a nanny, but as something more. The idea was simultaneously frightening and comforting. "I should get some sleep," she said, finally standing up. "Tomorrow will be a long day." William nodded, respecting her retreat. "Good night, Amelia, and thank you." "For what?" "For being here. For everything." Amelia just smiled in response, unable to express in words the complex tangle of emotions she felt. She retired to her room, where she spent some time checking the final details for the next day's celebration before finally falling asleep. The morning of the birthday dawned sunny and perfect, as if the sky itself were conspiring for the success of the surprise. The Quadruplets, contrary to all habits, woke up even before Amelia and came knocking on her door, already dressed and ready for action. "Aunt Amelia, wake up! It's today!" Beatrice called in a loud whisper. Amelia opened the door to find 4 eager, smiling faces. "I'm already awake. I see you're all very excited." "Daddy's still asleep," Brooke informed her. "We peeked." "Great. Let's go down and start the preparations, but in absolute silence, okay?" The girls nodded solemnly, though the sparkle in their eyes betrayed the difficulty they would have in containing their excitement. In the kitchen, they found Martha, Mrs. Gable, and the other household staff already in full swing. Everyone had joined the conspiracy, happy to see joy returning to that family. "Good morning, little early birds," Martha greeted with a warm smile. "Ready for the big operation?" "Yes," they replied in unison, before remembering they were supposed to be quiet. For 2 hours, the mansion turned into a beehive of silent activity. The backyard was decorated with colorful ribbons and balloons. The table was set with linen tablecloths and the finest china. The cake, chocolate with fudge frosting, William's favorite, was strategically placed in the center. And the girls' handmade gifts were artfully arranged. When everything was ready, the most challenging part came, waking William without revealing the surprise. "I'll go," Bella volunteered, the most convincing actress of the 4. She tiptoed up the stairs and knocked on her father's door. "Daddy, are you awake?" A sleepy mumble was the only response. "Daddy, there's something strange in the garden. Come see." This tactic worked. In a few minutes, William emerged from his room, still in his pajamas, his hair disheveled but with an alert expression. "What's strange, Bella? Did an animal get in?" "I'm not sure," she replied, trying to look worried as she led him downstairs. It looks, oh, you'd better see for yourself." With surprising skill for a 7-year-old, Bella led her father to the back door. The moment he opened it, a chorus of surprise erupted in the sunny garden. William froze, dumbfounded. Before him was not just his family and staff, but a true celebration scene that had clearly taken days to prepare. "Happy birthday, Daddy!" the Quadruplets shouted, running to hug him. For a moment William seemed genuinely speechless. His eyes scanned the transformed space, lingering on the smiling faces of his daughters and finally on Amelia, who was watching the scene with quiet satisfaction. You did all this? For me?" "Yes," Beatrice replied proudly. "We planned everything." "With Aunt Amelia's help," Brianna added honestly. "And Mrs. Gable and Martha's," Brooke completed. "But it was our idea," Bella insisted. William knelt, hugging all 4 of his daughters at once, a feat he could now accomplish more easily after months of practice. "This is the best birthday of my life," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, my princesses." After a few moments of absorbing the initial surprise, William was gently pushed by his daughters to sit at the head of the table. Breakfast turned into a festive celebration, with elaborate dishes prepared by Martha, gifts delivered with childish enthusiasm, and lively conversation. The Quadruplets were radiant, proud of their successful plan. William accepted each handmade gift, from abstract paintings to small pots with seedlings from the garden, as if they were priceless treasures. And, in a way, They were. After breakfast, as the conversation flowed naturally and the tension of the surprise had dissipated, Beatrice gave a discreet signal to her sisters. It was time for the special performance they had been rehearsing for 2 weeks. "Daddy," she announced with formal seriousness, "we have one more surprise." The four positioned themselves before everyone in a rehearsed formation. Brianna, who had the most in-tune voice, set the pitch, and then they began to sing a personalized version of Happy Birthday to You, interspersed with original verses they had composed about their father. It wasn't a professional performance. There were off-key notes and moments of desynchronization, but the purity of the sentiment and the evident effort made it more moving than any polished presentation. When they finished, there wasn't a dry eye. In the garden, William, visibly moved, gave them a standing ovation. "That was perfect," he managed to say finally. "How you've all grown. How you're becoming such incredible people." The quadruplets ran to hug him again, forming the family knot that had become their trademark in recent months. The celebration continued through the morning, with games in the garden and more conversation. Around noon, William surprised everyone with an announcement. "I was thinking we could take the rest of the day for a special outing. How about we go to the beach?" The suggestion was met with enthusiasm by the girls who ran to get ready. In less than an hour, everyone was prepared. The quadruplets with hats and sunscreen, Amelia with a bag containing snacks and towels, and William with a wide smile that lit up his face in a way Amelia had rarely seen. The chosen beach was a quiet, secluded cove, perfect for a family afternoon. The girls ran on the sand, built castles, and played in the shallow waves under watchful supervision. William and Amelia took turns joining in the games and simply observing, sitting side by side on the sand. "They're so happy," Amelia commented, watching the quadruplets. "Try to catch small crabs in tide pools." "Yes, and free," William added. "Free from the weight they were carrying." "You seem lighter too." He smiled, his eyes following his daughter's. "I feel lighter, as if I'm finally emerging from a long dive in dark waters, breathing fully for the first time in years." Amelia nodded, understanding the metaphor perfectly. "Do you know what impressed me most about today's surprise?" he continued. "It wasn't just the gesture itself, but what it represents. A few months ago, my daughters could barely express emotions other than anger or fear. Today, they organized a celebration of love. That is extraordinary. They always had that capacity within them," Amelia replied. "They just needed to rediscover it." William turned to face her directly. "With your help. Don't diminish your contribution, Amelia. You were the catalyst for all of this." She smiled, accepting the acknowledgement. "Perhaps, but you all did the hard work. I just offered a safe space." "A safe space," he repeated thoughtfully. "That's exactly what our home has become since you arrived. A safe space for healing, for growth, for a new beginning." There was a clear intention in his words that Amelia couldn't ignore. For weeks they had danced around the topic, carefully avoiding any explicit declaration. But today, on William's birthday, there seemed to be a new resolution in his eyes. Before she could respond, they were interrupted by Brooke, who ran towards them with a particularly beautiful shell to show. The moment passed, but something had subtly shifted between them. An invisible barrier had dissolved. The rest of the afternoon passed in a carefree, joyful atmosphere. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with orange hues, the family gathered to watch the natural spectacle. "It's so beautiful," Bella sighed, sitting on her father's lap. "Yes," Beatrice agreed. "It looks like a painting." "Mommy loved sunsets," Brianna commented softly. The comment, instead of bringing the usual melancholy, was met with nostalgic smiles. "She really did," William confirmed. "She used to say it was the moment the sky showed all its colors at once, as if it were showing off." The quadruplets laughed at the description, easily imagining their mother saying something like that. "I think she would like knowing we still watch sunsets together," Brooke observed thoughtfully. "I'm sure she would, sweetie," William replied, hugging her tighter. Amelia watched the interaction from a few steps back, giving them space for this family moment. It was a scene she would have never imagined witnessing when she first arrived at that house months ago. William and his daughters, speaking openly about Eleanor, sharing memories with smiles instead of tears, honoring her presence rather than painfully avoiding it. The drive back home was quiet, with the girls falling asleep in the car, exhausted from the day's excitement and activities. When they arrived at the mansion, it was already dark. William carried Bella and Brianna inside, while Amelia helped Beatrice and Brooke, half asleep. After Ivy putting the girls to bed, they found themselves in the hallway, both exhausted but satisfied with the perfect day. "Thank you for today," William said softly. "For the birthday, the outing, for everything." "It was my pleasure. Seeing their happiness and yours is the best reward." William hesitated, as if making an important decision. "Can we talk a bit more? On the porch, perhaps?" Amelia nodded, sensing from the seriousness in his voice that this would not be a casual conversation. On the porch, under the starry sky, William seemed nervous, a rarity for a man usually so composed. "What is it?" Amelia asked gently. "I need to tell you something. Something I've been thinking about for weeks, but I never found the right moment." He took a deep breath. "Today, seeing my daughters so happy, so whole, I had a certainty I can no longer ignore." Amelia felt her heart race, anticipating the direction of the conversation. "I'm not naive, Amelia. I know that what has happened here in recent months is exceptional, not the rule. I also know that you came into our lives as a professional, not seeking complications." He paused, organizing his thoughts. "But I also know how to recognize when something rare and precious comes into one's life, something it would be foolish to ignore or let slip away out of fear or convention." He turned to face her directly, his eyes reflecting the determination of someone who had thought deeply about every word. "I'm not asking you for anything right now. I'm not expecting any answer or commitment. I just want you to know that what I feel for you goes far beyond gratitude. It's something I haven't felt in a long time, something I thought I would never feel again." Amelia listened to every word, feeling the weight and sincerity behind them. "William, Please let me finish," he interrupted gently. "I know the complications. I know the ethical issues involved with your position in our home. I know the concern about the impact on the girls. I understand all of that." He took a step forward, moving closer to her. "But I also know that what we have here, what we've built together in this house over the past few months, is something extraordinary. A family that was broken, finding a way to heal, and you, Amelia, are not just the facilitator of this process. You've become an essential part of it." The emotion in his voice was palpable, and Amelia felt her own eyes well up. "What I'm trying to say, rather awkwardly, is that I would like you to consider staying, not just as my daughter's nanny, but as a permanent part of our family. The title, the form, the details, all of that can wait. The important thing is that you know there is a place for you here, a place you've created with your own heart, and that no one else could fill." The words hung between them, laden with meaning and possibilities. For several seconds, Amelia remained silent, absorbing it all. "When I first arrived here," she began finally, "I told Mrs. Gable that I wasn't here to fix anything, just to stay until the light returned." She smiled softly. "That's what I believed my purpose was, a temporary purpose, a brief passage through lives that needed help finding their way back." William listened attentively, his face revealing the tension of someone both fearing and hoping. "What I didn't expect," Amelia continued, "was that I would find here not just a family to help, but a place where my own light would also shine again. A place that would fill voids I had carried for so long I had forgotten what it felt like to be whole." She took a step towards him, closing the distance between them. "The quadruplets captured my heart from the first day, even when they were trying to scare me with rubber spiders." They both smiled at the memory. "And you, William, you showed a courage and a commitment to healing that deeply inspired me. Together, you five have taught me that family is not just what we're born into, but also what we build with love and conscious choice." William waited, almost holding his breath for the conclusion that had not yet come. "I don't have all the answers yet," Amelia admitted. There are complexities we need to navigate carefully, especially for the sake of the girls. But I know with a certainty I have rarely felt in my life that my place is here, that this house, in some inexplicable way, has become my home. The relief and joy on William's face were almost palpable. He took her hands in his. That's all I needed to hear. The rest, the how, the when, we can figure that out together, at our own pace. For a moment they stood like that, hands joined, gazes connected, a silent understanding passing between them. It was not an ending, but a beginning, the start of a new chapter for the Sterling family, now expanded in ways none of them could have foreseen. From that day on, the Sterling mansion continued its transformation. The quadruplets blossomed, their distinct personalities emerging more clearly as the shadow of unprocessed grief dissipated. William rediscovered not only how to be a present father, but also how to be a complete man, capable of honoring the past while embracing the future. And Amelia, who had arrived with a small suitcase and a worn Bible, found a purpose that transcended her initial mission. A year later, a new photograph was placed on the living room piano. In it, 6 people smiled under the bright garden sun, William in the center with the quadruplets, now 8 years old, around him, and Amelia by his side, a delicate engagement ring sparkling on her left hand. Next to this photo remained one of Eleanor, no longer hidden or avoided, but honored as an essential part of the family's story. The garden, once partially neglected, now flourished, lush and colorful, tended by 6 pairs of hands. The girls' vegetable garden had expanded, becoming a weekend family project. Clearings were made among the trees to let in more natural light, symbolizing the new philosophy of the house: honor the shadows but always seek the light. On stormy nights which once brought terror, the family now gathered in the living room to tell stories of the guardian princesses, a private mythology that had expanded considerably, with new adventures and characters added by the quadruplets themselves. The mansion, once a mausoleum of painful memories, echoed again with musical laughter and lively conversations. The quadruplets continued to be challenging in their own way. They were, after all, children with strong personalities, but their energy now flowed in constructive directions, nurtured by the safe environment that had been rebuilt around them. William and Amelia found their own rhythm, building a relationship founded on mutual respect, shared values, and a deep love for the 4 girls who had, inadvertently, been the architects of their union. And every night before dinner, the entire family would join hands around the table. Together they gave thanks not just for the food, but for the love that sustained them, for the journey they had shared, and for the daily miracle of having found each other, proving that even in the most unlikely of places, even after the most devastating losses, the light always finds a way. Because, as Amelia had learned, and now taught her 4 daughters of the heart, true family is not just the one we are born into, but also the one we choose to build, day after day, with patience, courage, and unwavering love. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the journey of William, Amelia, and the quadruplets has touched your heart. To continue this journey through emotional stories that explore family ties and paths to healing, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating narratives. Find it here by clicking on your left. If this story about new beginnings and second chances brought a smile to your face or a tear to your eye, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Every day, we bring new stories that celebrate the complexity and beauty of human relationships. Share in the comments what your favorite part of the Sterling family's story was and which character touched your heart the most. Your stories and personal experiences enrich our community and inspire us to continue creating content that moves and transforms. Until our next journey together,